everybody, and here is our Street Talk section of the bit. I don't know why I said hello. I said hello at the beginning of the podcast, but hello again. Welcome back after that brief musical interlude.
Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, we've been watching all our Coronation Streets on the ITV Hub. We've seen it. We're getting them out early. I still think the YouTube upload of this is going to be on Sunday night, I guess, once the episode's been on, but... Anyway, so this week's storyline, Tyler, did you having a look? I told you not to look.
Oh, I'm not actually. I'm literally staring.
We're starting off with the Dobbs Stape storyline. We had called that the Book of John up till this point, but a new name for this week's development. Now, Gemma, just to set a bit of context for this one, you know that auction programme called Homes Under the Hammer?
Yeah.
I'm calling this one Hope Under the Hammer.
No.
You can't look at it with your eyes. Hope Under the Hammer.
No.
Under the Hammer.
Tell you what, you could have used that pun to describe Elizabeth Holmes being sentenced to years in prison, even though she's pregnant.
No.
Homes Under the Hammer.
Next up, we've got the return of To Murderer He Wrote, so Sam and Harvey this week, jolly good. There was also combined with the Debbie in Debt storyline. We have a returning character from 13 years ago. Martha is back, isn't she?
Martha Stewart.
Martha barges back, I'm calling this one. Because of her barge. Yeah.
She hasn't got her barge anymore. She's on solid ground.
She doesn't have her barge anymore, but I'm calling it that anyway. And then we have got the Maxtremism storyline, the Summer Baby storyline. I can't believe that's back already. And I was wondering, you remember we couldn't think of a good name for the Eliza storyline last week. Well, she had a few little scenes this week, and it turns out that she has lots of after-school activities and is running Stu ragged with all of that. So, of course, it makes perfect sense to call this storyline Eliza Do Lots.
Yeah, Doolittle, but
Doolittle, but...
Why didn't you call it Eliza Doolittle?
Because do lots is fine. Lottle's not a word. Gemma's just poured herself another glass of wine. I think that listening to my terrible puns and storyline titles is like, I need to refill this tankard. So
I don't drink wine from a tankard. I'm a lady.
Right.
I drink it from a very nice glass that I got from Anthropology, actually.
So all the episodes are on the Hub this week. ITV tweeted it out on Monday morning saying, as an extra treat, all episodes are ready to binge as a box set each Monday morning.
Here you go.
But remember,
arseholes.
No spoilers. What?
Here you go. Here's your life ruined for the next month.
No. Lots of people like them coming out early. Not everybody has to do a Coronation Street podcast.
Well, I thought, hang on.
On a weekday night.
What?
Not in there. It's just.
What, is this voluntary?
A select few. Oh no, you've rumbled me. Would you like to do the Hope story, or would you like to do the Sam story?
I do hope.
You do hope.
I think
Hope
she's
Under
great.
the Hammer.
Wednesday, Fizz and Tyrone are pleased to hear the book's already dropped out of the top 20 and Hope goes off to school. You've got something about Leanne here. Is this the same story?
No, this is a different story.
Tyrone goes to clear the books from the outhouse. This is so bizarre to me. Trying to put this into context, we watched them all together. And this just happened yesterday, but so did everything else.
Yeah.
It's really hard to keep things in a chronological, spaced out way. Anyway, so
I like it when he opened the outhouse door and the John Stape cut out and nearly fell onto him.
And he went, whoa!
Nice little jump scare there.
Like that, yeah. He goes to clear the books out from the outhouse, but they're not there, so he assumes that Fizz has done it. Meanwhile, Hope's in the changing rooms and she's surrounded by classmates who and telling them what an awesome criminal her dad was and how he never got caught by the police.
Yeah, they said, he died. They said, he died though. He wasn't a master criminal. He
never got caught, so in your face. Tyrone says to Fizz about these books and she's like, no, I didn't do anything. So they're really confused about where these books are gone. Meanwhile, we see where the books are because Hope has the stack of them and she's signing them and charging a $5 per copy. And this is the sort of silly kids maths that I used to indulge in when I was a kid, where you don't buy the product, you just sell it for a profit, and actually it costs less than it did to buy originally.
Well, she made £75 on Monday, so that's a...
and also I said to you...
Alan would be proud of her.
I remember, when I was a kid, I used to get £5 a week for my pocket money when I was at secondary school, And that used to be enough money to get on the bus to town and have a McDonald's and come back. And so I said to you, like, do children really have cash on them? Like, would they really have £5? And you said, yeah.
I don't know.
Well, secondary school children.
Secondary school children, I guess. But I don't know. We're obviously being very out of touch of that. I assume that children carry money to them to school so they can buy their lunches. But then also, I've heard tell that some secondary schools like have special fingerprint sensors or whatever for children to pay, and it's all cashless.
I would imagine that there's not a lot of cash taken in schools.
No, but that doesn't matter. Hope just needs to get herself a card reader if
she needs
to
sign up to Square. Fizz and Tyrone get home and speak to Hope about these books, and they're like, just tell us the truth. Where did the books go? And she says, oh, I saw them. I was in shock and I had to get rid of them. So I put them in a skip on Tile Street. I don't want to talk about it. And Fizz gives her a hug and Hope's smiling over her shoulder so evilly. I just love this child so much. Hope goes to visit Sam and she's buzzing about earning £75 because she's so popular. And even some Year 11s spoke to her for the first time in her life. Her dad is doing something right for her. And Sam's obviously a bit...
you can see that it's not all going to end well.
No, he doesn't seem to be that as enthusiastic as she is. She comes...
Well, he's saying to her as well, like, these Year 11s are not your friends. And she's like, yes, they are.
They are now,
think I'm great.
She goes back home and she wants to go to bed early. And Tyrone and Fizz are very suspicious, but they can't really work out what she's up to. But upstairs, she's looking at her text messages and she's had a load of them from her satisfied customers who want more. So she texts back to let them know that tomorrow she's going to plan a special tribute to John Stape. The legacy of evil lives on.
I always find whenever the characters are having these text message conversations on Coronation Street, sometimes they'll kind of program into the phone a couple of the previous text messages, don't they? But it's never quite enough. So it looks like Hope had received like 3 messages from these people. They could have at least made a screenful worth, so it looked like she'd been inundated.
I wonder whether they don't do it because people wouldn't have time to read everything and it's not important.
I don't know.
So Thursday, the girls are getting ready for school and Hope is learning her own shoes.
Stop reading my words. She's polishing them.
Oh.
She's polishing her own shoes. I don't know why they're autocorrected to learning, but I'm sure if you'd watched the programme, you'd have known exactly what she was doing.
I actually watched it very closely this week, Michael. She wants to go on the bus again. She doesn't want to be taken in anymore. And when her parents go, I don't know who's there with her, but another kid is. Or she talked to herself. She needs to organise something special for the book signing.
So Sam comes round.
So she gets the toolbox out and she says she wants to make a big impression. And Sam says, is this something to do with those Year 11 girls? Then they're not really your friends, you know. And Hope says, they better be or I'll kill them. Fizz tells Sally and Faye that she's worried that Beth is looking at her funny.
This is at work, wasn't it?
At work, in the factory. She's sure that she's read the book. And this was previously last week, was it? Carla said, nobody read the book, don't bring it in, don't talk about it.
A couple of weeks ago, I think. I don't know.
I don't know where she's getting off at the moment. Can I just say, Carla's been weird. She's acting like the school headmistress, and I know that she's always had a weird relationship with the factory girls, and she treats them like children, but it felt even more pronounced this week, didn't it?
Well, I think part of it is because of Summer being there, and like Summer calls her Miss at one point.
Yeah, I know, that was hilarious. He goes, yes, Miss.
She is definitely giving off heavy headmistress vibes there.
Yeah.
On a bit of a power trip.
It's not even like a nice, a normal head teacher. It's like Miss Trunchbull vibes.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of... It's a bit like, when Mike used to be there in the factory and he ruled with an iron rod, didn't he? And,
I know, but Carla has always been a bit like this, but I just felt like it went beyond, into sort of parody, almost. So, everyone's telling Fizz that, oh, look, I know the book's out, but people aren't going to think badly about you. It's okay. And then Fizz goes off, and Beth's like... Of course I've read it. Look, here you go. She whips it out. And Sally's like, I would never lower myself to reading that. I promised my friend I wouldn't. And then Beth's like, really? Because there's a whole lot in here about, there's a racy passage in here about Rosie. I can't believe I forgot But I also, more so, cannot believe that Sally forgot that Rosie was one of John Stape's first victims, and it might behoove her to read the book to see if she was mentioned at all.
I can't remember. I'm sure we've had a conversation before. I don't know whether it was on the podcast or not about the fact that this would have Rosie in it, and so Sally would clearly want to be interested in reading it. But you're right. I don't get why Sally hadn't joined the dots there. If there's basically this biography of John Stape, why wouldn't it mention one of his biggest crimes, that he kidnapped her daughter twice?
Was it not the first thing he ever did?
Yeah, basically. That was what set him on his route to evil.
Yeah, it's basically her fault for being too sexy.
Which is why it was bizarre. Why it was bizarre that Fizz, when later on she says, "Oh, there's only 2 pages on Rosie."
Well, we'll get to that. Because that's stupid as well. So she grabs the book off her and starts reading it disgusted. Tyrone comes home later. He's got a flat pack desk from Big Garth. Remember him? He worked at the market.
Yeah, Big Garth from Goodnight Sweetheart.
It's a present to Hope to show that they see that she's growing up. And this the whole week was just full of parental guilt from Tyrone of all people about how Hope has been affected by this book. And really, Tyrone shouldn't be the one that's grovelling. I know that he's had big history of recently betraying the family, which I'm glad she hasn't forgotten. But really, let's not forget that it was Fizz that was married to Stape.
Yeah.
Why isn't she getting the brunt of this? Why doesn't she feel guilty? So, meanwhile at school, Hope is drumming up support for her latest reading. She's going to recount the gory events of the tram crash week. She's got the video, she's got the YouTube up, she's got the episode.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to say...
Probably get a signed script from the cast and everything. Yeah, she said, we're going to say the events of December the 9th, 2012.
She's like, guess what? Here's a bit of trivia to wet your whistle. Dev wasn't even supposed to be in it originally. How about
that was that one, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah, it's supposed to be Fred Elliott.
Yeah. Fizz catches Sally reading the book, and Sally's like, well, I didn't know it had Rosie in it. I can't believe you allowed them to publish this. Why didn't you try harder to stop it? And Fizz is like, oh, it's only 2 pages. Why?
Well, Fizz is also like, we did try it really, really hard. I can't believe you're getting mad about this. There's 2 pages on Rosie. The rest of it's about my whole family. Of course I tried.
It's also a bit funny. I mean, I didn't think of it, but I'm not Fizz and Tyrone. But why didn't they go to Sally and go, Rosie's in this book. We can get it stopped, but we need money. Have you got any money that we can use?
Yeah, that is a really good point, actually.
Because, then Sally would have no legs to stand on to complain to them. They didn't write this bloody book. I wouldn't have an issue with Fizz, because I believe in a free press, and I don't think anyone should be allowed to stop a book being published if it's true, which it bloody well is.
Yeah.
I would be mad at Fizz, if I was Sally, for all the things that she did with John Stape.
Yeah.
That were literal crimes. But hey.
I'm surprised that Sally's not more worried about the fact that maybe it drops her in it, because she fancied John Stape, didn't she? Didn't she try it on with him a little bit before he was getting out of Fizz? Or maybe it was during, I don't remember.
If there's only 2 pages in it about Rosie, I don't think anyone's picked up on the fact that Sally was lusting after the sexy English teacher.
No, clearly not.
She should count her lucky stars, because that doesn't reflect too well on her.
No, it seems like it's an unfinished book, this. I know that it seems like the main source of information was Hope, and there's no reason to think that Hope would really know the details about Rosie Webster. But I would have thought, and I can't remember, that when Rosie was eventually released, she probably did speak to her all and sundry about it. So there's probably plenty of information the author could have drawn from.
There's literally a bit where it's pointed out to Sally that Rosie sold her story.
Oh, did it? I can't remember. I didn't hear that bit.
So all the things that happened to Rosie are on public record. So why Sally's mad about this, I don't know. Anyway,
I mean, nobody wants that sort of thing dragging up again, do they? But...
Well, Sally's not sympathetic at all to Fizz. I wish they had just written that there are only 2 chapters about Rosie rather than 2 pages, because it just really rang wrong to me.
It's still a fairly chunky tome, isn't it?
It felt like it was a pretty long book. And you said to me, when they said, it's only 2 pages, you're like, what is in the book then?
Yeah.
Because that was quite a big chunk of it. And also, it's pretty salacious.
I know.
And also, it makes him a paedophile.
Yeah. Anyway...
I don't know why Sally's mad about it, because her kid... Well, I would be mad if I was a mum and the book wrote her in as some kind of sexy schoolgirl who seduced a teacher, because that's really wrong. I'd even lower myself to being on the sofa with Holly and Phil if I had to spread the message that my daughter was an innocent victim who just had a very short skirt.
Totally chaste.
Exactly. So the book is right. Sally says to Fizz that Hope is taking after her dad. Things get very heated. Carla comes out. She's like, for God's sake, I told you guys, you're not allowed this book. And she takes the book and she orders Beth into her office.
It feels like, a lot of what they're saying about the book, a really strong message is that could Hope be a psycho as well? Because people keep mentioning it, but I don't know why the book would go... It's true, but I don't know why the book would go with that angle particularly.
It feels like a very problematic publication.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
yeah, I don't think you'd be allowed to write that about a kid.
She wasn't named though. It's fine.
The female child. So Beth's in the headmaster's office, trying to defend herself. She's going, "No, why would I not read it? It's full of juicy gossip about people I work with. Who wouldn't read it?" And Carla says, "You're suspended." But Beth wheedles her way out of it. But she's on a final
Carla. Don't let people do that.
What?
If you've just suspended somebody, don't let them talk you out of it.
But also don't suspend people because you're in a bad mood.
No. Carla's probably quite grateful, I've probably gone too far here.
Oops.
Alright, go on then.
But then Beth's okay, you have to... Carla says you've got to apologise to Sally. Can you stop that?
Sorry, I'm just clicking the plugs because I've realised the laptop's not plugged in. Now it is.
So... Carla tells Beth she has to apologise to Sally, and then Beth's like, "Can I have my book back?" And Carla's like, "No," and I'd be like, "That's theft."
Well, it's just like confiscation.
Who
Again,
do
it's
you
like a
think you
teacher,
are?
isn't it? You can have it at the end of the day. I'm going to give it to your mum. And
Yeah.
you can tell her why you had that book in your bag at the sewing machine.
No, it'd be more like, you can tell your son, Officer Craigie, why you were reading this disgusting, salacious novel.
I did like that they had those sewing machine scenes, if only briefly. That was almost,
Classic
dare I
Curry.
say it, classic old school Curry there. I think we maybe saw 4 of them sewing at once.
Brilliant.
Or at least sitting by
I
the
really
sewing
enjoyed
machine.
that, yeah. Later on, desk's been made. Fizz wants chamomile tea, and she finds a stash of cash that Hope had put there earlier. Why does she not put it in her room?
She's Hope when she was counting out at 75, wasn't she? She got down the top and picked out the tin and put it there. That was bizarre. That was like asking to be found by someone.
A little bit. Tyrone realises his hammer's missing as well. And no alarm bells are ringing quite yet, but...
Well, they're like, I wonder where
is this?
Yeah.
So then we go to school with Hope. And can I just ask everybody, do you guys recognise one of the girls that was in this scene? There's a girl in there who looks very familiar to me. And I don't know if she's related to somebody who's famous or has been in Coronation Street, or if I'm just... crazy.
I didn't recognise it.
Or
It was
drunk.
one of those so-called Year 11 girls who looked a little bit younger than
She
Year
really,
11,
she really looked familiar to me. And I tried to look up the actor's name because I didn't know what the character was called. And I tried to look up the 2 people I didn't recognise who I assumed were girls in the scene, and I couldn't find anything.
Mystery.
Any ideas? Anybody? Anyway, Hope is the crowds are gathering for her big reading. And
Reenactment.
She's going outside to check the coast is clear, and then she hears the girl say, "Oh, Hope's a freak. Oh, I'm glad I didn't miss this because she's an absolute lunatic." And then she gets annoyed.
Hero worshipping her murderous dad.
Brilliant. She strides in, she pulls the hammer from the rucksack and says, "What did you say?" In their tea break room. Sally apologises genuinely to Fizz, and even Beth sounds like she means it as well. And Fizz is kind of accepting, but then she gets a frantic call from Tyrone because the school wants to see them. And it's all a Crawshaw, and she has summoned them to a classroom because she doesn't have her own office still.
They really, really, really should give Miss Crawshaw her own office, shouldn't they? Or just, promote her to head teacher. We haven't seen Mr. Griffin for a long time. I get that there's only so many rooms that they can use, that it is bizarre that that everything seems to be going on in that room. If they were going to have it going on in that room, they could have at least had it like all in disarray and carnage, where Hope actually did smash up the place, you know, Becky Granger style, or Harvey Gaskell style, I suppose. But we were denied that joy of seeing her going postal on the other students.
If there had been like a dent on a desk or something, it would have been great. So anyway, Orla tells them that Hope is with a teacher, and earlier on she tried to reenact John Stape's murder of Charlotte Hoyle with a hammer. And it's a bit of a sore subject around these parts, because actually, don't forget that a lot of the teachers who work here knew Charlotte and John, and it's brought back some very painful memories. And Mr. Graham has decided to take early retirement because of the stress. I tell you what, if he's been a teacher for long enough that he can retire, this surely can't have been enough to push him off the edge.
I know.
There's probably been a lot worse stuff going on
Must
than
have
that.
been the last straw.
It must have been.
I liked how they did, do the callbacks. It made sense that
was
numerous
great.
members of staff would have remembered
thought
Charlotte and John. But they just went a bit too far to say the sheer thought of it made a geography teacher retire.
I think Mr. Graham's like, I'm getting out of this joint. These kids are psychopaths.
I mean, if you thought that children were bringing weapons to school like that and threatening to smash up the place, it probably would be quite scary, to be honest. But no, I thought that was...
You're just jealous because you can't take early retirement.
Yeah. Anyway, poor Mr. Graham.
So, Fizz is trying to grovel and apologise, and Aura's going, there's been book signings, there's been murder reenactments. I'm sorry, but we've got to suspend Hope for a week. So, back at home, Tyrone's trying to look on the bright side because he still feels guilty and he feels responsible for Hope going off the deep end because of everything he did with
Alina.
Pop.
Yeah. Well, they're also a bit guilty that they weren't able to stop the book being published, and when he went a bit mad and punched Nick, and then he went a bit mad again and punched the author, and so there's more reasons for Hope to bear a grudge.
Fizz is not very positive about this, and she thinks that Hope needs to see the therapist again ASAP. And honestly, I'm quite surprised that Orla Crawshaw didn't say, we've arranged for somebody to... Because she obviously is incredibly troubled. She needs to see a child psychologist.
Well, it sounds like I don't know. I guess she must have one already. This isn't the first meeting that Hope had with this lady. So probably got her on speed dial at number 9 now, haven't they?
Yeah, right. Guess what she's up to now?
Hope's on the rampage again. No, not a fire this time. A hammer.
Hope is at home later. She's very unaffected. She doesn't really care. She hears about Mr. Graham. She thinks it's funny. Tyrone says that me and your mum are very disappointed in you. And then Hope says, are you going to leave us again like you did before? And Tyrone's like, no, we're your family. I would never. Of course not. I'll never make such a mistake again. So this is, what really triggers him even further to become a big doormat.
Yeah.
If only he had thought of this when he was shagging Alina Pop. Hope goes upstairs and Fizz tells him he needs to stop worrying her and let her know that he's not going to leave. And he says, of course I won't. In fact, I'm going to take a week off to spend with Hope. What an idiot.
Well, one of them needs to be honest.
I guess they haven't got Evelyn.
No.
What do you do if your kid's been suspended for a week?
You find alternative provision. It's up to you. That's
in
many ways it is more of a punishment for the parents because they have to do something about it.
This is the thing.
Hopefully, the annoyance of those parents gets transferred onto the child, and they maybe feel a bit guilty about it. But not Hope in this case. She's loving it.
Well, this is the problem about treating schools like their babysitting services, and it's not really anyone's fault, is it? It's not the parents' fault.
No.
It's the way society is.
I don't know whether you can go to like a pupil referral unit just for a week or something.
What do you do?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because it's not the the school can't. The school's got to be able to say you can't have your kid with a hammer in school. I'm sorry. Anyway, so this just sounds too tough for me. This is why I don't want to have kids. It's too complicated. Tyrone talks to Hope about this plan, and she says, "Oh, can I have a blanket?" First of all, she says, "Oh, can we have the heating on?" He's like, "What do you think? We're made of money?"
Oh yeah, they twice in that episode they brought up the cost of living crisis, didn't they?
Yeah.
So they're finally caught up in Weatherfield.
Are they going to have I know that lots of people are kind of like Tyrone, where they're like, well, I'm not going to have the heating on. But there are people who are like, well, I can't feed my children now, Are they going to have that kind of story? Is it just going to be fairly well-off people? And
I don't know.
Tyrone and Fizz obviously aren't loaded, but they're, they've got enough money that that he can take her out for buying clothes and then
he can take a week off work
and pizza.
I mean, it's a bit like the pandemic kind of thing, isn't it? Coronation Street paid lip service to it, and they had people wearing the masks, but they didn't have a proper COVID story because they didn't want to.
I think it was the right call
to wallow in it.
And
maybe this is the same
agree.
thing. They'll mention there's a cost of living crisis, but they don't. People don't want to be reminded.
No, I agree with it.
Just how much money we're wasting away.
What are you talking about?
What?
I don't think you know what you're talking about.
I do.
We're not wasting money away.
No, I didn't. That is the wrong word. Spending.
We're not spending money. We haven't got money. That's the problem.
We are being charged lots of money for our bills.
I agree. I kind of agree with this approach because I've had to take Sky News off my phone now. All the way through the pandemic, I had it on. Once I realised that I was kind of pretty sure I wasn't going to die of COVID. I wasn't too worried about it, even though it was horrible. But this I can't cope with. I'm so terrified. This is gonna.
When you said you'd taken Sky News off your phone, I thought you were going to say, "Oh, I've unsubscribed to something."
What does that mean?
Well, this. I've tried to save money by.
No, I just can't read news.
I also do. You took Sky News off of my phone when COVID just started, didn't you? Because I was I was really panicking about it, and I haven't had it back, and I've not missed it, and I'm not reading stuff about what's going on in Russia, and I was
none of that bothers me.
I'm ignorance is bliss really at the moment. I'm sticking my head in the sand about it.
The situation is terrifying to me. I'm sure I'm going to lose my job at some point. And I don't know what we're going to do. So that's just horrible.
Let's not think about it.
That's why I don't really want Coronation Street to go there. But again, will it help people that are going through it to see it on screen? I don't know. Anyway, she gets left alone on the sofa, does Hope. And so she gets a walkie-talkie out to talk to Sam. And she says, I got my dad wrapped around my little finger, but I'm going to make him pay for letting me down. So on Sunday, rightfully so, and this isn't actually Sunday, this is at some point during the week, I guess this is supposed to be Friday. Ruby's not pleased to see that Hope is getting breakfast in bed, and she has to go to school, Sunday school. She's right. Hope is just being lavish with attention.
Yeah, she's been pandered to, isn't she?
Yeah.
She's getting a fry up. She gets pizza at the end of the episode.
She gets to go out to get loads of new clothes.
This episode is kind of bookended with Ruby getting rightfully indignant about the way that Hope is being treated like a princess.
If I was
Ruby,
Ruby,
there should be some kind of punishment.
I'd be like, well, this isn't fair. My mum was a criminal too. How come there's not a book about her?
Yeah. Why can't she?
Just because she didn't
she's
kill
going to be
anybody.
reenacting some of Kirsty's crimes. I think she's going to go
Hope with a
Hoover. She's going to go to the cleaners cupboard and get out old Henry and start bashing the schoolmates over the head with it.
So Hope goes to therapy and she says, I was angry at Tyrone for not stopping the book, and I think the only reason that I was suspended was because Mrs. Crawshaw and Mrs. Hoyle were friends. So she doesn't get it still. She's not really understanding what she's done particularly wrong. She thinks it's all a big conspiracy out to get her. And then Tyrone's trying to get her to do her homework later, and she says, no, I want to go to the Trafford Centre. And then they come back and they eat pizza on the sofa, and Ruby comes home and she's like, where's my pizza? And Fizz is like, ooh, there's a casserole in the fridge.
Just imagine if
I tell you what, is that not the most depressing sentence? There's a casserole in the fridge.
Nice. I wonder whether Ruby's gonna also go off on one. Is she gonna be really naughty now to try and get herself suspended from school?
All she's seen being demonstrated in front of her face is, if you're naughty, you get pizza, and you get to spend the week with Dad.
Yeah. So why wouldn't you? I'm not convinced they will, because Ruby is still very, very underused on Coronation Street, isn't she? She's there when they absolutely need her to be there, and I don't know whether they would whether they trust her to carry some scenes like this. And I don't particularly want a scene with another scene of somebody on the phone saying, "What's that? You want us to come into school?"
I thought that was really funny when Fizz was like, "Slow down, Tyrone. What do you mean? What do you mean we have to go to the school?"
I
love that, those scenes.
I really, really wish we could have seen something more than just her brandishing this hammer. And I guess it is a case of, you know, this girl is, 12, 13 years old. I don't know how old Isabella is at the moment. And they can't actually have her pounding her classmate's head in with a blunt instrument. But it just felt like, oh, surely they could have done something to show it. I don't know, you know? It's another one of these cases of we hear things, but even that, Orla was saying, oh, she tried to reenact the murder of Charlotte Hoyle, but well, what did she do then? Did she literally just hold up the hammer and that was it? Did she swing it about a little bit? Did she kind of give one of her classmates a bit of a bop with it? I don't know. I'd love to have seen her absolutely going mad on it, but I guess you just can't do it.
I think.
Is there a way with camera trickery?
See, this is the thing, right? This is the interesting thing about Coronation Street here, is that it feels like they're biting off more than they can chew with some of these storylines, because they couldn't show that scene, and they couldn't show that with Griff and his gang. They're talking in innuendos and things, and I know that some people are finding it very uncomfortable to watch, and as it is, but I feel like if this wasn't Coronation Street, it would be even more dark than they're going with it, you know. So I think I'm interested to see that Coronation Street is taking on these storylines that feels kind of difficult for them to actually portray properly on an 8 o'clock time slot. But 8 o'clock's pretty late still.
Yeah,
and
I
also
know.
the other thing just occurred to me about it being on at 8 instead of 7:30. How many families that used to watch it together don't watch it anymore with their kids because it's on too late? How many kids, you know, what age does 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock become the bed?
Well, I mean, it still ends at 9 o'clock, didn't it? And it used to end at 9 o'clock as well,
I
because
know,
there's half
yeah.
an hour in between. So I don't know.
True.
I mean, it is losing viewers, but so is everything these days. Yeah, that's just my kind of grievance about that, because I did really, really enjoy Hope this week, and I'm quite
Street
hard
still...
to please when it comes to Hope, as listeners know. But I did really, really enjoy her. I liked her evil smile. She's really perfecting that.
She reminds me of Amy, but she's got a better kind of evil backstory than Amy.
Yeah.
Because Amy was turning into a mini Blanche, and Blanche's only crimes were really making people feel bad about themselves.
Yeah, Amy was never like proper psychotic like this.
No.
But yeah, so to see her doing her scheme into the book selling, I thought was fantastic. When that boy was there saying, what, £5 for a book? And Hope was like, oh, she's got a proper bit
it's
of a
£15 online.
Yeah, proper business head on her. And the way that she is getting Tyrone around her little finger is so funny to watch. But yeah, like you said, what a doormat that Tyrone is. That is absolutely not how he should be treating his daughter.
I'm so sick of Tyrone.
She's got him over a barrel, and yes, he
such
probably feels guilty
stupid.
about the way that he treated the family over Alina and everything. But at the end of the day, he is the dad. His daughter's been suspended. He kind of needs to go repair and show her a little bit of
Tough
consequences to her actions.
I think if I was a parent, my main area of expertise would be tough love.
Although, I mean, Hope also, she has run away before, hasn't she? It's a really difficult one, because if they were
Don't
to
push her too far.
Don't push her too far. She's either going to attack you with a hammer next, or she's gonna run away. So it's really, really difficult. That school, that pupil referral unit in Birmingham that they sent her to a couple of years ago, absolutely rubbish, wasn't it? Not only did it bring Psycho Jade into their life, but it clearly had no lasting effect on this girl whatsoever. I hope they don't get an outstanding for their Ofsted, I tell you. I do wonder how long they're going to be able to keep this up for, though. Is she going to get out of this phase? Are they going to turn her into a young villainous, young woman? She's still so young. She's only in year 7. And I don't know whether this will start to get stale by the time that she's old enough that she can go, proper psycho on things. Because there's only so much I can see her holding the hammer but not actually attacking someone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm thinking to myself, is this a lifetime story for Hope? Because it feels like, really, it is. because she had, when she was young, she had that cancer scare at Christmas, and she was all sweet and angelic and everything. But since then, she's just had story after story about being a troubled child and
not
starting,
much else.
And having no...
Is it getting a bit stale?
No, I love it. Having no conscience and just being... Just getting on with evil stuff. Are they going to just... Is Hope the future female villain on Corrie that we've been waiting for years?
Maybe, but it really is the long game, isn't it? Because they can't do it for another 6 or 7 years.
Yes, they can. Do you remember when Connor McIntyre left and we did the interview with him and he was talking about what he'd really like to see as far as Corrie villains go is a proper femme fatale, you know, a proper evil, murderous female villain. We haven't really had one. You know, Tracy's done you know, one murder. It's not good enough. Is that where Hope's going? Because, you know, I know you say, oh, we can't go on for 6 or 7 years. I don't think that's true because if you look at, like, David had a good long patch of being incredibly psychopathic.
Yeah, but she still doesn't hold a candle to David. I'm sorry, she just doesn't.
That's because she's younger than David.
But when David was her age, I still think that that Jack P. Shepherd did a better job than Isabella Flanagan's doing, who I think, like I said, I was impressed with her this week. But I think that already by this age, David was more compelling a character. There's no need to compare
the two.
No, is that you?
In a detrimental way.
No, I know.
But there's no reason to think that. You've kind of painted us into a corner now.
No, I just hope that I hope that they will give her more to do.
So
there's only so many fires that she can light.
Here's the question: would you be happy to have a slow burn character development for Hope until she gets to, you know, in her early 20s and turn her into a proper Corrie villain? Whether or not
Isabella Flanagan.
Whether or not she plays her, or, you know, she has a head swap at some point.
Yeah, that's a really good point as well, because it doesn't feel like she's going to get a head swap, because I think she is a good actress, yes, and I think she's very popular, and I don't think that a head swap is needed or would go down
incredibly well with what she's being given.
Yeah, I do as well. I mean, it's just I'm saying Jack P. Shepherd was another league in my opinion, but they might decide if we do head swap her, then we can do the darker storylines with her earlier. So let's cast her as, you know, with some 18-year-old actress when the character is 15 say, and then they don't have to wait. I think that's going to be really tempting to do. Yeah,
I agree with you. I'm just really intrigued as to if this is part of a long-term, long-term idea about Hope, the future of Hope. Because I can't see Fizz or Tyrone going anywhere. And even if they do, you know, I think the girls could stay on the street somehow in some capacity somewhere. Whether they got adopted by somebody or not, I don't know.
I think Fizz and Tyrone are in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
And I was having a look on Corriepedia about the top 100 character appearances, and I think I'm right in saying that both of them are in the top 20 now, kind of the bottom end of the top 20.
Yeah, it's not surprising.
But, and a lot of the people who are higher than that, obviously you still got Ken and Gail and that lot, but there's a lot of classic characters that, you know, give them 15, 20 years, Fizz and Tyrone could easily crack the top 10. It doesn't feel like they're going anywhere. And that's one of the things that I like about them, that they do offer this stability.
I think they're good. Yeah, I like them being in the show, but I'm more enthusiastic about them with this, with this daughter, this evil child.
Mm.
I don't want to get into discussions about stigmatizing children who've been abused. This is just a TV show. It's just a fictional character. It's not a story about, you know, trauma and stuff, unless they start going down that route, which they haven't really.
I think eventually they will do something super dark with her, and it's hopefully going to be a bit of a wake-up call for her.
But how cool would it be to have... So how old is Hope now?
She'll be 12 at the moment.
So imagine in 10 years' time... Yeah, imagine in 10 years' time you've got...
Yes, her 12th... But she's born in 2000. She's born during the tram crash, wasn't she? So she's going to have her 12th birthday in a couple of weeks.
Imagine in 10 years' time...
Yes.
We have evil Hope and good Ruby. You know, these two sisters who've been raised together, and Hope's just been a horrible nightmare, and Ruby's like this innocent victim.
Yeah.
I can really see that happening.
Yeah, they're
'Cause
naughty and nice.
I'm fairly sure that Ruby's gonna have a head swap.
Oh, yeah, Ruby's gonna have a head swap, no doubt about that. So yeah.
Don't you think that's an amazing setup for this story? You can see also all the teens falling in love with this idea, the teen viewers, because there's nothing cooler to a teen than a troubled youth and being forced to be evil against your will because it's your nature.
Yeah.
And then but I'm the good one and I'm gonna fight you.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Wicked. If only they had songs.
I do wonder what the future has in store for Ruby, because she's a very, very blank canvas at the moment. They could make her the good child, or they could make her, it's a classic and a bit of a cliche story of somebody saying, oh, so and so gets all the attention, I feel that I'm the neglected child, and so I'm going to go off the rails as well, maybe. I don't know, but we have to wait quite a while before we see what develops. But I don't see the Dobbs and the Stapes going anywhere. So if I were in the storylining team or producer or whatever in Coronation Street, I'd certainly be thinking very carefully about where I imagined that these two would be going, because they're not leaving Coronation Street, are they?
Nope.
So all the book stuff in the factory I found kind of fun.
I like this. I really like this idea. I feel it's one of those things I feel I wanted more time on it, I think they did a really good job of making it. I felt like, we'd finished with that idea in the show, but it really makes me interested. I feel like you could have a whole TV, one of these limited series about a crime that had been committed and a book gets written, and how does it tear the community apart.
It was funny, not even just the factory people, but random people during the week saying, "Oh, I'm on chapter 10 at this point," or
Who did that?
I can't remember. There was a few people. Oh no, it was the therapist, wasn't it? She's the one that was like, "Oh yeah, I just got one chapter left or something." I'm only reading it for research, so I do like the idea that this secret book is being naughtily passed around everyone. Absolutely, Beth would be the sort of person that would read it. I loved how Sally was trying to, be the one saying, "Oh, of course I would," and I made a note to my friend, but immediately dropped it as soon as she realised that Rosie was in it. It just kind of makes me think. Who else would have? I bet Dirk's read it, hasn't he? He looks the sort.
Oh, Dirk's
he's not gonna blab anything about it, but
no.
I definitely reckon
you
Dirk's
can trust Dirk to be very discreet.
Yeah, and probably Izzy as well. I mean, it's probably the most excitement that Izzy's had all year.
God.
Staying there at home on her own. Why wouldn't you read it?
I don't understand why you wouldn't read this. What I don't understand why anybody thinks that you wouldn't read this. What, to be the bigger person? Fizz was involved in moving a corpse. She doesn't have the moral high ground here.
I know. I mean, friendship, loyalty and all that. Would I want to read something like this if I felt that it might make me feel worse about somebody who's a friend? If somebody wrote a scandalous book about you, would I really want to read it? I don't know.
But I seek out things I don't want. This is what I was saying earlier about the news and stuff. I know it sounds really selfish to say that I only worry about things that affect me, but I am just a human being. I'm just a person trying to be good, but when it's something that hits home to me, I guess. But I get it's like a moth to a flame. I think I'd read it. I think I'd read it and fume. I think my copy would be full of post-it notes and underlines and highlighters and stuff.
I'd like to think that I would, avoid reading it for a little bit, but I think that temptation might be a little bit too great, to be honest. Anyway, this storyline is I'm enjoying very much. Let's see where it goes in future weeks. It feels like there can't be that much more left of it because it's been running for quite a while now, hasn't it? But we will see. So Sam's stuff then. To murderer he wrote, and he met said murderer on Wednesday. Simon emerges at the beginning of the episode from wherever on earth he's been hiding himself all these past months, and gets him and saying, "Oh, so I know I haven't said anything at all about it up to this point, but I really don't think that you should be going to take Sam to see Harvey, to be honest, because he's a bit of a wrong 'un, he is. I used to work for him, remember that? And Nick's like, well, you know, we're doing it now. We've said we would.
Well, we're doing it now. So
Yeah,
go for
so
it.
go back into your cave, Simon. See you again in another 3 months, maybe, for one more scene. There's also a little reminder at the beginning of that episode there that Leanne is still looking into ways of getting money for the bistro so that they can buy Debbie out, but so far not doing so well with that. Sam comes out of his room and says...
Oh, this is when she's looking at payday loans.
Yes, that's right, thank you. Sam comes out of his room and says, oh, thank you very much for letting me do this. I know how hard it must have been for you.
Can you get a payday loan for a forest?
Nick tells him, oh, you're very welcome, or words to that effect. And that really sets the tone for Sam, that episode, doesn't he? Like a very kind of mature understanding that this is quite difficult for everybody, but I am determined to do this and get to the bottom of it. And I tell you what, I absolutely loved Sam on Wednesday's episode. These scenes in the prison with him and Nick and Harvey were just fantastic, brilliantly written, very well performed.
It's so super interesting, the difference between Sam and Hope and how aware they are of other people and their emotions and consequences of actions and things.
Yeah. And yet Sam is supposedly the one who is the socially awkward one, the one that people are saying, oh, are they going to give him an autistic storyline or whatever? But he knows, doesn't he? He's very, very aware
autistic people aren't unaware. Yeah, I know what you're saying. I think autistic people are probably sometimes more aware of.
Yeah, I guess it's more that Hope is just very unempathetic, isn't she?
I know, I really love her.
Sam's like a little Jiminy Cricket, isn't he?
He's like times. I tell you what, if you ever have your bout of conscience where your devil and your angel are talking to you, just have a little look on your shoulder and see if one of them's Sam and one of them's Hope.
So they turn up at the prison, definitely not the Coronation Street Studios. This restorative justice lady from last week is there. We saw her name in the credits. I don't remember what it is. Do you remember?
No.
We'll just call her restorative justice lady. It just rolls off the tongue. She says, look, this might be a little bit tricky, but we're going to keep it going. And if it's absolutely necessary, I'll end the meeting, but I'm going to just let it run and see what happens. Although, of course, Harvey might choose to end it himself. So they go into the prison, sit at the table that's always specially reserved for any main characters, right in the middle.
Oh, do you
by
come
the
this
steps.
way?
Oh, you're from Coronation Street, sit here.
It's like if you're a very attractive or famous person, you get seated in the middle of the restaurant.
Yeah. I thought they'd sit you by the window.
Well, I mean, there's no window in a prison, Michael. Use your brain.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Like, oh, you're the famous one. Sit in the middle, please.
So they're sitting down there, and then Harvey comes out, kind of swaggers over, plonks himself on the seat, and is like, what can I do for you, ladies?
Sexist.
Oh, he's hard, isn't he?
He's so
that
evil.
Pre-watershed criminal taunting there.
Misogyny.
Anyway, he is not making things easy for them at all. Sam just wants him to talk and is asking him questions, and he's just he's not playing ball here. And
well, that's an Americanism as well, isn't it?
Oh yeah, Harvey wouldn't like that. The lady
it's
calls
not cricket.
The lady calls a timeout, and he's like, "Oh, I hate Americanisms." That was weird, and it didn't go anywhere, did it? Anyway, off to one side when they're having this little timeout.
Can I just say, I'm sorry, I walked over to close the door. I wonder whether a Coronation Street writer has been told off for saying an Americanism and just wanted to get that line in.
I don't know. It seemed an odd thing for Harvey to say. Although maybe if he does get out, I know some friendly racists who might welcome them into their gang, who are also not fan of Americanisms like Halloween. Remember that?
I say who cares about Americanisms? We invented the language. We can adapt.
You tell Harvey that.
I'm fed up with worrying about Americanisms. I say we should steal those like we stole everything else.
Anyway. So Nick is speaking to Harvey at one side. Is he speaking to Harvey? Oh no, that's another episode. He's speaking to Sam, isn't he? And he's like, "Look, do you want to go home? Do you want to stop it?"
This is the timeout, isn't it? They all go outside.
This is timeout time, and Sam's like, "No, it's not too much for me. It's fine. It's a Danish gambit." He's just assessing our strengths and weaknesses, and Sam reckons that Harvey is scared of him, and he's like, he hasn't even looked at me once. So I just love this, how Sam has read the room. He knows exactly. He's like a child psychologist.
He's like a mini Roy. He's just sitting back and assessing.
Yeah.
He's not necessarily involved himself socially, but he can step back and observe people on a different level.
But he's able to do all this, and he's talking at the same time, and he's asking the right questions. He's doing the follow-up questions. When Harvey was saying things to him, it's probably later on in this, and he's going, I see, and then he writes
Making
it down on
notes.
his little bit of paper.
I
He's
know.
not intimidated in the slightest. I was like, go Sam this week. He was brilliant.
I would like to watch a TV show which is Sam solving crimes with clinical psychology.
Yeah, he could. I mean, he's if they want somebody to be the next DI whatever, never mind PC Craigie, get Sam on the case. Get him fast tracked to the top of Weatherfield Police Department.
Sam is the sort of kid who ends up in the papers when they're aged 12 with their PhD in quantum physics.
Yeah, I wouldn't surprise me if he does have some kind of early GCSE story at some point.
I think he should do.
Yeah, why not?
The thing is about him is that he's so
cookie.
He's so exceptionally clever and mature for his age that if they don't make a big deal about it, it just becomes very unrealistic, because everyone's kind of like, oh, that's just Sam, he's just a child genius. There's loads of those in Weatherfield. You know what I mean? It's like, no, this kid is actually...
He is very uniquely special.
I know this is fiction, but we've got to not pretend that this kid is...
And sometimes in the scripts it feels a little bit unrealistic and a bit...
No.
Like, would he really say this kind of thing? But all of this I thought was just done exactly right. I went into these scenes thinking, this isn't going to be so good.
This could be clunky.
I didn't know what to think. I didn't know how it was going to be. I thought it might be a little bit clunky, but everybody involved in this, absolutely brilliant. Anyway, they go back and have a sit down with Harvey, and Sam's like, so why didn't you fill out the questionnaires that I sent you? And Harvey says, I'm sick of your constant bloody letters. And then Sam shows him, unfolds this picture of his mum, Natasha, and says, how do you feel when you see this? This is the woman you shot. And Harvey, he's clearly rattled by this. He doesn't want to have a photo of the woman he accidentally killed. It was a case of mistaken identity. He doesn't want that shoved in his face. And Sam says, why are you scared? Harvey says, I'm not scared. Right, okay, let's do this. So Sam, just by asking how he's scared, manages to get him to open up. It's just like his chess moves.
So these scenes with Sam, Nick, Harvey, and the lady, and
Started just a lady,
and then the Leanne comes.
She's there on next episode.
I thought it was quite funny how the picture of Natasha was obviously folded up because Sam had it in his pocket or something, but it was like folded. I don't think it was on the mouth. He could have opened her up and gone, hello, it's me, Natasha. Why did you kill me? Why? That would have really shook him to his core. Don't you think?
This has already done a fairly good job of that on its own, to be honest.
I'm going to haunt you.
So anyway,
look how pretty I am.
Harvey has agreed to start talking, and he says, yeah, you're right, I shouldn't have killed Natasha. Of course I'm sorry. Sorry I'm sitting here and I didn't kill Leanne.
Yeah.
And Sam's like, okay, did you suffer any psychological trauma as a child or anything like that? Or did you kill anybody as a child? An animal maybe? For sport?
I like this.
And Harvey's like, oh yeah, well of course, I'm grouse
fox
hunting. Yeah, I was a member of the fox hunting community. I went hunting grouse in Scotland every weekend. And then
he's been watching too much Downton Abbey in prison.
So he's just been putting on the bravado and everything at this point. But then he kind of cracks and he's like, well, yeah, I did kick my mate's head in once because he punched me dog. And this is probably the first true and honest thing that Harvey said throughout this whole interview.
Can I just make sure that everyone knows that he wasn't like, I just kicked my mate's head in because he punched me, dog. He punched my dog.
Say that's Americanism.
No.
And Sam says, oh, so my mum, was she the first actual person you killed then? And he's like, this is good because he kind of leans into me and says, if it wasn't, lad, do you think I'd tell you? Time to move on, kid. And I thought that was quite a chilling delivery of that little line there. So Sam he just won't take no for an answer.
He's relentless. Yeah.
Throughout all of this, like, most people would be like, I'm not getting anywhere here, I give in. But you're right, relentless.
Somebody needs to Photoshop him on a poster for Terminator and call him the Interrogator.
The Saminator he is, isn't he? He's going to call him Sam the Relentless. He just wouldn't relent. What we do in the shadows.
Reference.
So Sam says,
the
right,
flight's on.
let's talk about your parents, Harvey. Tell me about your family. And
Always hitting
Harvey's
her.
like, well, there's my auntie Sharon. She mostly brought me up, and now I've got a bit of a love-hate relationship with my brother. And Sam's like, oh yeah, so what happened to your mum then? And he doesn't want to talk about it because it turns out that Harvey's mum died when he was a kid. Was this new information? I can't remember. But it was when he was 14, and this is when Sam does this. So he thinks I have got somewhere with him. I've got something in common that I can maybe use to get his weaknesses, to get more info. Yeah, and Sam says, this is classified as an adverse childhood experience, and he's like, oh, it turns out that whatever percentage of people in prison have got at least 3 adverse childhood experiences. It's ridiculous, and it absolutely feels right for Sam to be saying all of this. And Harvey's like, "Are you a real kid?" And then he's like, "What do you think? You are sitting across the table from your mum's killer. Do you want to kill me? Do you want to just launch yourself at me?" Because he's like, "If I had 5 minutes with my mum's cancer, I'd have torn it apart. Is that how you feel about me, little man?" And Sam says, "No, I'm not the one who's upset here." Sam asks if he feels any remorse about what he did. Would he make the same decisions again? Do you think your mother would be proud of your choices? So he knows that Harvey is, understandably cut up about his mum dying at a young age. So he's kind of going for the jugular here, isn't he? Saying, what would your mum think of what you were doing? And Harvey's like, no, of course you wouldn't be proud. What kind of mum would want a jailbird as a son? She was a good woman. And Sam's like, oh, that sounds a bit like my mum. Harvey, by this point, is clearly struggling. Sam is getting to him. He came to this meeting thinking, I'm going to do my bit. I'm going to kind of probably make Sam feel bad. I'm gonna make things really difficult for him so that hopefully he won't write to me again. And he's kind of sitting here thinking, oh, this is actually making me feel human feelings. I want to get out of here. So, end of the meeting for Harvey. Back at home later, Nick tells Simon and Leanne how grown up Sam was, how he cut Harvey down to size. Simon's quite surprised by this.
Simon and Leanne look like a pair of mugs here because Sam's run rings round Harvey and they were terrorised by this man for weeks on end to this point at which they both became recluses. You know?
Yeah, and then
Nick
got the
comes
measure
back
of
and
him
is
within
like,
half an hour.
Nick comes back and goes, wow, Sam was brilliant. He made Harvey into a quivering wreck. And Leanne and Simon are like, whoa.
Well, Leanne says, but look, at the end of the day, did Sam get the answers he wanted? Because that was all Sam wanted, wasn't it? He wanted to try and understand why Harvey acted this way. And everyone up to this point had told him, that sometimes there's no reason behind it. Sometimes you're just a bad penny. But and that's what I was thinking as well. He's just a Corrie villain. But they really did a fantastic job, I think, of having some kind of reason for why Harvey is the way he is. Almost feeling a bit of sympathy for Harvey, and I wasn't expecting that.
It's okay to feel sympathy for bad people. I wish people weren't so hung up on proving how morally superior they are by never allowing themselves to feel any sympathy. Especially for fictional characters. It's not going to hurt anybody for you to go, oh... Well, just for the record, I didn't feel sorry for him at all. I just found it interesting. I think it was really... It
gives them a bit of a different dimension, doesn't it?
Yeah, it makes them more three-dimensional.
Baddie through and through.
And to be honest... We've had a lot of criticism about Coronation Street bringing in these two-dimensional villains, haven't we?
Yeah. And Harvey, particularly, had been utterly that. He's probably only been in, 20, 30 episodes in total? Yeah. I'm going to estimate here. I probably might be wildly wrong there. But he has just been, no, I'm a bad drugs pusher. I'm going to beat up Jacob, and I'm gonna terrorise somebody from prison. I'm gonna escape from my van in the rain. I'm just evil, and I like to go around shooting people. But this bit getting about his family, I thought, I
makes sense. It doesn't have to excuse something, but it makes sense.
And I adored the final scene of the episode where he's sitting on his bed reading a note that is clearly one of Sam's notes there, and then he looks up and there's a picture of who we are to presume is his mum and him as a little boy, and he's getting proper emotional. And because he's the sort of person that isn't used to feeling this sort of things, he just goes off on one, doesn't he? He starts smashing his salad, pulling things off the wall, throwing his chairs around. He throws a chair into a wall that looks very flimsy and made a massive dent in it. So it's I'd maybe work on reinforcing those doors in Weatherfield Prison with these violent criminals in there. But and then he just kind of ends up collapsing into a sobbing heap by his door, doesn't he? Sam has absolutely got to him, and I felt a little bit sorry for him, to be honest.
No good deed goes unpunished.
So that storyline kind of goes on pause for a little bit, a bit overtaken by what's going on at the bistro with Debbie, which I didn't find as interesting, but Debbie is wonderful, absolutely. I adore
Debbie
this character.
was the best.
But I'm not really interested in who's buying it and who's not buying it. Just get on with it and do it.
Oh, sorry, Michael. I know that these are boring storylines. The anything to do with business is boring, but Debbie just made it.
Debbie definitely sweetened the bitter pill.
There could be a story about Debbie and Ronnie going to B&Q and picking out paint samples, and I'd love it because Debbie will cause chaos.
She's brilliant. So
she's just fantastic.
So Debbie at the beginning of Thursday's episodes reminds Leanne about this limited offer that she made last week.
It's a Black Friday sale.
First refusal on the bistro, or they can sell their bit of it.
Which is right, because it's Thanksgiving on Thursday. In America.
Coming up? Wow. Anyway, Leanne's like, I'm not happy about this. We can't get the cash. Please
blah, blah, blah,
give us
blah,
more
blah.
time.
Shut up, Leanne.
So they're visited by these potential buyers. And I can't remember what there's this kind of fairly well-off looking woman there. Yeah. And there's this giant of a man.
I thought she was there to snatch Summer's baby to start with.
Yeah, it could have been, couldn't it? Yeah.
Are you got any babies for sale? No? Well, then I'll just buy this restaurant.
There was a bit where Debbie goes up to this guy and she's like, nipple height or maybe lower to this guy. And she looks up at him and is like, oh, you don't need a ladder, do you? Which is great because anyway, so they turn up and they're dead.
Tell you what Debbie can do is cut everybody down to her size just with words.
I want to see her on a massive pair of Spice Girl platforms. But she doesn't need them, does she? That's the thing.
She's just such a blimmin' spark. I just love her.
Yeah.
She's a pistol.
Yeah, she's awesome. Anyway, they're very impressed by the bistro until Leanne does her best to put them off. And this is a proper soap cliche, isn't it?
Debbie scurries off to get the paperwork, leaving Leanne with the lady.
Tale as old as time. Somebody doesn't want something sold. Usually in Coronation Street they do this when there's a house that's being sold and the lodger doesn't want it sold underneath them, so that they try and put the buyers off. But here it's Leanne, and she's like saying, oh, this place is always empty, and it's full of rats as well. They're the only things that we see these days, and she kind of goes a little bit ditzy about it, doesn't she? And she couldn't be further from the truth, to be honest, because it seems like everybody in Weatherfield goes to the bistro at least 3 times a week.
The bistro is the only recession-proof restaurant in the UK.
Yeah, it's just because Debbie's such a great businesswoman. And anyway, they go off and have a look. So like, oh, thanks for the tip, love. They leave, and they tell Debbie they're not going to be making an offer. And Leanne's like, oh, isn't that a shame? I'm going to put an offer in. Oh, okay. Oh, no, what a time waster, right? And
what did you think of this? What did you think of Leanne doing this? Because this is very old school Battersby, but I thought Leanne had evolved beyond this.
I did as well, but, desperate times call for...
It wasn't just the fact that she did it, it was how pleased she was with herself and how she had absolutely no remorse.
I know.
And I really think... there was a lot of karma involved this week.
There was. She's laughing over the other side of her face.
I can't feel bad for her at all for this.
And I do like Leanne usually, but if it's going to be Leanne against Debbie, sorry, I am absolutely on Team Webster in this one. Leanne, sorry. So anyway, later on, and Debbie's found out about Leanne's little ruse and calls her out in it. She's like, how dare you? And she whips out Leanne's contract and says, right, it says here, madam, that if one partner can find a buyer above market rate, then they can force the other buyer to sell. So stick that in your pipe and smoke it. You better raise this cash now or I will find that buyer. So Leanne's kind of left like, whoops, probably shouldn't have done that.
Oh dear, I've poked the bear.
Yeah.
And it's a panda. It's a tiny cute panda bear, but it's really vicious.
Oh, a vicious koala bear is Debbie.
Do you reckon she's more like a red panda?
Yeah. Nick later on in the episode.
Oh no, she's like a honey badger.
She is totally a honey badger, isn't she? Yes.
Debbie's the honey badger.
That's
of
her
Weatherfield.
Patronus.
Uh-huh.
So Nick is looking at this contract back at the flat later, and he's like, "Oh yeah, Debbie's right." You'd have thought maybe they'd have studied this a little bit more themselves.
It says here you can't be a devious bitch, Leanne. I don't know what you were thinking.
He's like, "This is all going to be okay then." But then, before they can go any further with this, restorative justice lady phones back and says Harvey's requested another meeting with Sam.
She sounds like the newest member of the Avengers.
Restorative justice lady. She's got RJ on her chest. Leanne says, "Well, I'm coming with you this time." So Sunday's episode. She's like, "Oh yeah, we're going to go to prison today. Also, we can't buy the bistro." And Nick's like, "About that." He suggests that they use Sam's inheritance from Natasha, and Leanne's like, "No way!"
I'm sure this is what I said last week.
I can't remember.
And when Leanne was reacting to it,
things.
I was like, "Oh, am I a bad person?" But I agree. I think Nick's right here. But with the caveat that it always above board. They don't just take Sam's money out of his bank account. They sit down and they get Adam to make a contract, and they pay it back with interest that it would have gained if it had been, What is wrong with that? I really can't see the issue. And they could even write a clause in whereby Sam's inheritance gets a percentage of the profits every year.
Leanne just says it's a massive risk because it could all go boobs.
Well, I know, but that's the same with any time. The thing is about it is that if you did it properly with a proper contract and it was a loan, the Sam would get. You'd have to pay him back either way, wouldn't you? You'd have to. She's saying, "Oh no, I wouldn't pay him back if I failed." Well, that's not right.
Well, I think that if they were to go through this, Sam would be going through this contract with a fine tooth comb, wouldn't he?
Oh yeah,
he'd find any flaws in there.
Adam would be there, explaining it to him, and he'd say, "Thank you, Adam, but I've also got my own legal representation. This is my lawyer, Margaret, and she's going to go over the contract to make sure it's in my best interest. I'm sure you understand." And they'd all go, "By gum."
Never mind earlier, Dee Dee needs to hire Sam to be her new legal secretary, doesn't she?
Alia didn't
he just solved the Stu case months ago.
Alia didn't find a goddamn thing in Stu's paperwork. I don't know why Dee Dee hired her.
Anyway, so Leanne's like, "No, we're not doing that. We're not using his money. No way. It's a gamble.
No, that would be too easy
of a risk." And then it's like, "So what are we going to do to get you some money, Nick?" And they kind of go off and say, "Oh, maybe you get a job on the trams." And I was thinking, do I write this down in a note? Is it a joke? Is he actually going to be there stamping tickets? But they kind of had a laugh about this, like, "Oh, me and Nick working on the trams? No way." What about asking David for some money? No, he's too proud. So they're kind of a bit stumped for what to do here.
I kind of thought it was snobby because he wouldn't get a job on the trams, but actually for the first time refreshingly realistic economically about a character's standing and expectations of their career. Most other people would just go and get a job in the trams and nothing would change about their lifestyle or how often they went to the bistro or what house they lived in. But Nick's like, "Actually, I'm a business owner. I don't want to work on the trams."
Yeah, and also to be fair, we need this money by the end of the week. And I know in Coronation Street they often...
No, you've misunderstood. No.
What?
Leanne's talking about, we're going to lose the bistro. We need other jobs. What
should
we do?
Okay. I thought you were saying get the money. I know in Coronation Street quite often characters will get due jobs and then immediately ask for an advance in their wages. "Oh, come on, please, Mrs. Connor.
Can I please have £12,000?
Yeah. No,
Nick's first day on the tram, he'd be like, "I found this duffel bag and it's full of cash. What a dilemma for me. I know what I'm going to do with it."
Yeah.
And then next week, some old lady will come and go, "Have you found any money? I need it to cremate my husband."
Is that Alina's grandma going on there?
"Hello, it's me, Alina's grandma. I'm from England. That's why she speaks English so well."
They're going to go and see Harvey. Nick promises Debbie before they go that he's going to have this money by the end of the day. I don't know what he's thinking there. Ronnie reckons that he's bluffing. And so Debbie then phones up this lady from the last episode that came around looking and says, "Oh, Leanne's a load of rubbish. The bistro's doing brilliantly, actually."
Leanne's
and the
a trifling hoe.
woman's like, "Nope, not interested." Because the builders found wet rot in 4 separate places in the bistro. So whatever Leanne said, don't care. I'm not buying it, and you're going to be lucky if you find anyone who does, quite frankly.
Oops.
So they go to the prison next. Harvey starts off the confrontation, or the meeting, with him chucking one of Sam's letters onto the desk, and Sam is like, "Okay, so back to the questioning. What did you like at school, Harvey?" And apparently he was a bit of a fan of the old javelin. We also kind of learn a few other bits of other childhood trauma from Harvey, like he didn't have lunch much at school, and he liked history. Leanne...
Wouldn't he have had free school meals?
I don't even know whether that was a thing back then, to be honest.
Isn't he a similar age to us?
I'm going to say slightly older. But,
He's a grown-up.
maybe we're just showing it better. All those years of hard crime has really taken their toll on Harvey's face. Leanne is there just chewing the biggest of wasps. She's just like desperate to say something because obviously Harvey meant to kill her.
I love this so much.
Year.
Nobody gives a crap about this. Leanne's just been asked to sit opposite the man that accidentally killed somebody else while trying to shoot her, and it's only because he got the wrong woman that she's alive.
Yeah.
And then nobody cares.
Yeah. Harvey actually...
so mean.
He says sorry for what he did. He seems to give a bit of a
sorry I
apology
killed your mum
there.
because Leanne's so annoying.
So Nick, I kind of missed how and why this happened, but Nick gets left alone with Harvey later, and he's like, "You said sorry, but this is clearly an act. What's going on?" And Harvey's like, "Oh no, I've got some money put to one side. I'd really like Sam to have it. I want to make amends. I know about the bistro. I know that you're kind of down on your luck at the moment. You need a bit of cash. And by the way, I've just dropped a piece of paper on the floor, Nick. You might want to pick it up." And I didn't know whether it was going to be, one of these classic Coronation Street, it's got an amount of money written on it, and I'm just sliding it across the table, and Nick goes, "Well, that's a lot of money you are offering me." But no, it's got a mobile phone number
like a
on.
bank account, but it wasn't. It was a phone number.
Yeah, phone number, so get in touch with me if you need to. That's my bum phone number.
Yeah.
Return of the bum phone.
Don't ring it at night.
So they go back home, and they're saying, "Right, that's all done now. We never have to see Harvey again. We got the apology." So Leanne thinks that Nick is distracted later. He's obviously got this phone number and he doesn't know what to do about it. Debbie comes over to them though and says, "Change of plan, everybody. I've seen the error of my ways.
Devious Debbie.
You can. I'm going to accept your offer, and I know it's a little bit under the asking price, but you know what? You're my mates. Let's go for it. Do we have a deal?"
Feeling magnanimous.
And Leanne's like, "Yes, please," biting her hand off, and they go there to the back of the office, and Leanne just can't contain her excitement as she's signing this contract with Debbie's special fountain pen that Bill gave her when she was a teenager.
I like the way that she's distracting them from what's going on by going on about her fountain pen.
Yeah,
and both
and
of them
completely works,
too
doesn't
dumb
it?
to...
Leanne's like, "Yeah," and even Nick. Well, both Nick and Leanne are smart, aren't they? They're not dumb.
I would not have. I would fall in straight into this trap.
I know.
Myself.
Debbie is just smarter in this case. And what was the bit that they say? At the end, they say, "And we're done." And Debbie's like, "You certainly are."
Yes.
Oh God, I love that.
She is fantastic.
Yeah. So they all go and toast their success later, and then
drinking champagne.
Yeah,
They're like, "Oh,
Nick
Debbie didn't want to have champagne with us. Don't know why."
Yeah. So, but then the bloke comes back in, and he mentions the wet rot. He's like, "Oh, I special in remedial work. Don't know if Debbie's interested. I might be able to help out." And the penny drops for Nick, and I was like, "What?"
And he says it was going to cost them about 20 grand to fix it. So they've gone from not having 12 grand to now not having 20 grand.
They've bought a bit of a lemon in this bistro, haven't they?
And they've also... This is all their spare cash because all the rest of the money is what they could scrounge up to give her the offer that was still 12 grand under.
Yeah.
Oh, dearie
so
me.
Debbie and Ronnie, meanwhile, are also sharing a glass of fizz in the pub later. And Debbie's like, well...
No, hang on. They storm in, don't they, Nick and Leanne, to confront her?
Yeah. But Nick, I can't remember. I think Ronnie was maybe saying, oh, we sure we've done the right thing. And Debbie's like, well, yeah, they should have got a proper survey done. It's their own fault.
Oh, and she also said to them, oh, you guys shouldn't think about it. You should think about it before you sign. And Leanne was like, I don't need to think about it. So Debbie's washed her hands. She said, I warned you. I told you.
Yeah. Leanne then comes storming in, lays into Debbie, and Debbie's like, buyer beware. You've learnt a lesson here, my lady. Leanne just throws herself at Debbie. She has to have Sean and I can't remember who else, Ronnie maybe, pulling them apart. So sadly we didn't get a hair-pulling fisticuffs between those two. And Leanne gets kind of kicked out, doesn't she? So the episode ends.
Spirit there.
Yeah. Oh, it wasn't it? It was a proper Battersby moment. I almost wish Toya had been in there, because we did get to see a nice scene of Leanne and Toya on Monday's episode, or the first one of the week, whenever it's supposed to be.
Talking about going
Wednesday.
For lunch.
Yeah, going to lunch together, and there was a proper Battersby bonding moment. And if Toya had been there fighting on Team Battersby, that would have been great. I'd have still probably been on Debbie's side on it, but I would have liked there to be a proper scrap. Maybe Hope joining in with a hammer or something. So at the end of the episode, Nick and Leanne back from the bistro. They're really fretting about what they should do at this point. But Nick gets a call from Harvey's bum phone and is like, offer's still on, Nick. It's yours if you want it. And that's the cliffhanger for the end of Friday's episode. So there's something dodgy going on with this money, isn't there?
It's clearly a scam.
This is a clearly too good to be true offer.
He's not just going to give him the money. He's going to make him do something for it, or he's going to have to get it from somebody or do.
Yeah, it has Rick Neelan vibes written all over it, doesn't it?
Yeah, but Michael, we've all learned something this week, and maybe Rick Neelan had a very sad childhood.
He might have done, mightn't he?
Maybe his mum was killed.
Yeah, if only he could have had 10 minutes alone in a room with Sam, we'd have sorted out all his childhood traumas. Mm-hmm. But oh well,
we'll never know.
Never know. Yeah, so I'm assuming that Nick is eventually going to say yes to this offer and probably live to regret it. And I know it's another one of these money storylines which Coronation Street likes to do every year or so, but I think just with the characters and the dynamics and everything involved, I'm not dreading this. Also, to be honest, I still think Nick deserves this is a bit of karma for Audrey's money for him, isn't it?
Yeah, there you go.
It's the universe, Nick.
He did ask Sarah for some money earlier in the week, and she said no.
Oh yeah, he did, didn't he? Well, maybe she can drum something up with her new loungewear business that she's setting up with Michael Bailey. Yeah, I love it. I do like Nick and Leanne, but if you're going to pit him against Debbie, it's Debbie every time.
Oh, I love her. Hope and
What
Debbie.
more? We're not supposed to.
It's obviously really. What do you mean we're not supposed to?
I don't think we're supposed to be on Team Debbie.
I think we are. I think we're supposed to think she's funny. I'm sorry, but it obviously reflects very poorly on me. But I hold my hands up and say Hope and Debbie are my favourite characters at the moment.
You do like a good villain, don't you?
I love them.
And the thing is, she's not so villainous that you feel bad about liking her. I
said this before. You need antagonists.
Yeah.
The show can't just be heroes and idiots. It's got to be villains.
They had a bit of a misstep earlier this year where they tried to get Debbie to get her bistro robbed, and even didn't Ronnie bring that up? And Debbie's like, don't talk about it. It's like the right to say, forget about that. That was just a bit of drama so that Ryan could have a couple of scenes, so that Ryan Prescott could get his episode cat up for the year. But no, she's brilliant. She's wonderful. Leanne, you should have read your contract, really. You should have got the survey
honestly,
done.
It's like buying any property, but they thought because they sort of worked there that they knew everything there was to know about it. It was a fairly understandable mistake. Like I said, I would have fallen into this trap.
I don't know whether I would. I mean, when we were selling our house, we really tried to make sure we were doing everything and crossing all the T's.
Yeah, but if somebody had come along to us and said something like, "Oh, do you want to buy the freehold of your property?" We would have said, "Yeah." Oh, you want us to sign this thing? Okay, cool. What could go wrong? And then who knows what could have gone wrong? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's I think Leanne has learned important life lesson here. What's it going to mean for Debbie though? Like we were saying last week on the podcast, all she does is sit around in the bistro, and occasionally she might show her face at Chariot Square. I'm not really worried we're going to see even less of Debbie now.
I don't want that to happen.
Really don't want it to be. I really hope that they think of a way of integrating her more into the show, because she's a real brilliantly underused character. I need to see more of her. Debbie. Well, any more thoughts about Sam? I think we kind of talked about it as we went, didn't we? It was just absolutely perfect for me on all counts. I didn't know what to think going into it, but I was blown away. It's
clear to me that Harvey is getting revenge on Sam because of what he made him feel on the first episode of the week. That tantrum he had in his cell, throwing things around and looking at the picture of his mum and looking at the note and stuff. He wasn't feeling remorse and regret. He was feeling outrage that he had been forced to confront his
this
dark
kid
side.
made me feel things.
Well, that's it. I'm going to punish him and his stupid family for making me feel like crap.
Yeah. all good. Loving it. Good storyline. Another good one.
I'm just kind of a bit, is it going to be a drugs thing? I'm sure it will be. I'm sure Nick will have to deliver suspicious
I'm sure there will be
something.
bits where it's like, this is a bit grim and grisly. But for now it's good. The other thing I'm not too sure about is how long is Will Mellor going to be on this. I assumed that when he came back it was just going to be a few minor appearances, and then he was going to be off on Strictly and twirling on the dance floor. But I don't know, maybe he will be in it for a bit longer, or maybe the storyline will go on without Harvey. I guess we'll see, won't we? Gemma, on to the next story. Martha barges back.
The beautiful Martha and her lovely honey voice. Mm-hmm. She's back again on Wednesday. But, is it back on Wednesday?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, she wasn't. She was back on Thursday, sorry.
So Wednesday is when Ken is on the phone about the play. It's not going very well.
The play? The play that's been prepared for months and months and months. Why aren't they performing this thing to an audience
Having known people who've been involved in doing plays, I think you should know by now that it does take a bit of prep.
All right.
Yeah, it's not just Coronation Street. We have half an hour. So Mary comes over. She wants to run through some lines. She feels like she's getting in a bit of a crisis. She can't summon the fiery temptress from within, and she doesn't have very much experience with romance. And so he says, look, why don't you think about some of the famous Hollywood sirens and try to be a bit more like them, which was the worst advice.
Yeah, he sets her a bit of homework, doesn't he?
So, Ken, Brian and Nigel are getting ready later in the community centre is where they're having this, and Nigel drops some hints about Brian's performance needing to be toned down a little bit. And they also have a pair of silly ears that they put on him. He looks like the BFG.
Yeah.
So, Mary arrives and she's been watching some Joan Crawford, and it's not helped her out really. She's being very overly dramatic, and she delivers some lines. They criticise her, and she swans off in a huff. Later on, she swans back again. She's still overacting, even worse than before. Nigel calls Curtin and sends her out to get some drinks, and he's really flustered. He's like, "What can I do? This is awful. This is even worse than it was. I know what. I'm going to call in a favour from the Grand Dame of the Northwest Theatre," which I thought was Maureen Lipman.
Yeah.
But no.
They managed to get through the whole of Wednesday's episode without Nigel actually mentioning this woman's name, didn't they? Which is all very convenient.
I love it. They reconvene in the pub later.
Friend.
Wendy's there. Ken asks Wendy whether she's got any tips, and Wendy's like, "Oh, I advise restraint." And Mary's like, "No, I'm the leading lady. That's for bit players. I need all eyes on me." And then she flounces off to the florist. And Ken and Brian are panicking because they don't want Nigel to replace Mary because she's their friend, but she clearly cannot take a hint. So they summon Nigel to the Rovers, and they want him to ask this actress that he knows to coach Mary. And he says, "No, that's stupid. We'll just get her to play the role." And Brian and Ken say, "No, we'll drop out if you replace Mary." And Nigel says, "Okay, I'll ask her, but if she says no, then you're gonna..."
No hissy fit resignations from you. Deal?
Okay. On Thursday, Nigel is still going on about this actress, and because she's agreed that she'll come over later to give Mary a hand, and Nigel tells Brian he has to tell Mary about this. And then when Brian and Mary have a meeting in the cafe and he tells her this, she's not very impressed. She feels like she's been shafted because she doesn't need any pointers. So she storms over to Nigel in the community centre. She's very affronted about the idea that she needs a coach. And Ken says, "You don't understand. This actress is a top notch. She's an asset." And as he is saying this and praising this person, he doesn't know who she is. In walks the beautiful, radiant Martha Fraser and says, "Oh, thank you very much, Ken." And Ken's like, eyes on stalks, hubba hubba, awooga. He looks like somebody out of Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
He was great this week.
He was so
massive
hammy.
Horn dog. Hammy, but in a...
William Roach was perfect in this. He knew
played
exactly
it
what was
brilliantly.
expected of him. He knows this is not a serious storyline. He's just lusting after Martha.
Just that everywhere he's like, "Martha." I can't do it. But
I know, it's fantastic. It's like Carry On.
it is Carry On Corrie.
Yeah.
Oh, Martha Fraser.
What a hot totty. So Ken wants to chat with her, but she's like, "I'm here to work, not to talk." And then she goes over to Mary and she starts getting her to do breathing exercises and things. And later in the pub, Mary says, "Oh, Martha's techniques really helped me, and I will stick around for Nigel if you need me." And then they start to talk about her and Ken's history. And Ken's like, no, we're just good friends. It was a long time ago. And Martha looks a bit put out because this was a great romance that they had. When Ken's playing it down in front of everybody and not admitting it. There wasn't really a proper like kissy romance, was it? It was like a meeting of minds.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah,
I don't think they ever like kissed or sort of hugged or anything.
I don't remember.
There was just.
He was going to go off with
Of
her.
course, the story about Martha, if you don't know, is that he was walking Eccles one day along the canal, and then he stumbled across this beautiful creature with her bewitching canal barge, and she kept inviting him in for wine and soup, and everything was really beautiful inside.
And she's just so cultured.
And she's there with her scarf and her acting and her beautiful pictures on the wall.
And she was everything that Deirdre wasn't.
And there's a very famous scene, like juxtaposition where Ken has Martha's homemade soup, and then he comes home to Deirdre. He's like, "Oh, made you some soup," and she gets the can and she splodges it out into the saucepan, and it splats in the shape of the can still, and it's just, couldn't be more symbolic of the difference between these two women. And then Ken eventually decides he's going to say goodbye to his life on Coronation Street and Deirdre and run away with Martha on her barge. But when Martha...
Doesn't Peter put him off? I think he catches him leaving or something. I've got a vague memory. I might be making it up.
When Martha toots off on her barge, Ken is there with Eccles on the bridge, and he just kind of watches her and sort of waves, and she waves
by his woman.
And Martha just has to accept that Ken's made his choice.
Two ships that passed in the night.
Yes.
Two tugboats that passed in the night. They mentioned that line again, didn't they? Because one of the, the famous AA meeting scene where Blanche brings up that Ken had a woman on a tugboat, and Ken says, "It was a barge." And they have a callback to that this week, don't they?
So at the Martha's annoyed, obviously, but then at the bar, Ken tells Martha he didn't want to rake up how he broke her heart, and Martha takes great offence to this, and she's really mad at him. She says, "You did not break my heart. You disappointed me. You're arrogant, and you're a mere footnote in my life story."
She's like, "Your arrogance and your ego knows no bounds." Yep, I'm Ken Barlow.
Yeah,
you know me.
Have you not seen Coronation Street? She storms out, and she says, "You can tell Nigel that you're going to have to do without me." So on Thursday, Mary comes into the cafe. She's all acting her part, and Adam, I don't know why, being an arsehole. It's like, "Oh, Mary, you're so great at acting. Brilliant job. Well done."
But she loved that. She's got a bit of a thing for Adam, hasn't she,
I think
Mary?
everybody does. I don't know why, though. He needs to wash his hair. Number one, Tracy finds Ken looking pensive in the armchair, and he's like, she's like, "Oh, in love with Wendy, I recognise that look." Then Brian comes round and tells Ken that Nigel's threatening to call the whole thing off because Martha's in a snit, and so Ken needs to find Martha and apologise, and he also needs to tell Wendy about what's going on. So Ken tells Wendy what happened, and she she's like, what? I don't really mind if you talk to her as long as all that stuff is in the past. So Martha and Ken go to the bistro and they have a chat where he tries to butter her up, and they talk about the fact it's been 13 years, and she's like, oh, but I've had many partners since then. I'm sorry about Deirdre. Then she asks him about the rest of his family, and then she's like, oh, if you could do everything all over again, would you do it? Would you try again, or maybe not?
Because it comes up with he's talked about Amy being at university, doesn't he?
And she's like, oh, I wish I was 18 again.
Yeah.
And then she
Life
says,
ahead of me.
would you like to try it all again and not screw it up this time? And he's like, what do you mean screw it up? Look at me, I'm Ken Barlow, I'm not a main character.
I've been in more episodes than anyone in here. Number 1.
They carry on talking about what ifs, and she says, you know what, I've been working on a script of my own actually. Would you like to read it? It's called On Solid Ground. And it's a one-woman show about me leaving the barge. And they clink glasses, and Ken's just like, we're looking at her like she's got no clothes on.
This is where I was writing the notes, and you said, did you just see Ken's orgasm face?
Yep, that was definitely it. We had to rewind it and watch it a few times, didn't we? Just to get the proper effect. Brian and Nigel and Ken meet in the cafe later, and everything's back on with Martha, and Mary's going to have some lessons. She's fine with all that. So she's very inspired, and Ken goes off to read Martha's script, which Tracy catches him doing in the house. And she's like, you weren't pining after Wendy when I saw you earlier. You were pining after Martha. I can't believe you've dredged up another one of your conquests. And he's like, oh, I'm actually really happy with Wendy, actually. I don't even care. Everything's fine. And Tracy's like, I don't believe you. And she looks at his script and she's like, oh yeah, here we go. Ken and Wendy have a little scene where she reveals that, she's just kind of proving herself that she's not as theatrically minded as Martha. And so Ken's like, oh, I need to be with the smartest woman.
Yeah, maybe can you make me some soup, Wendy? It's not a test, I promise, but I really fancy.
How would you go about making...
If I were to say, Wendy...
If I said I fancy some soup, would you open a can or would you make it?
Would you get out the knife or the tin opener? Anyway, loved it. This we did a cabin extra a couple of weeks ago on this, didn't we? About Stephanie Beacham, who plays Martha, returning back to Coronation Street. And for anybody who didn't watch that, then this was the last big secret that we found out about when we went to the Coronation Street set back in August. And
we're all out of secrets.
Because Ali Sinclair, who was showing us round, was telling us the odd spoiler here and there. We didn't want to know, but then you were like, "Oh no, go on,
Michael,
tell me."
You keep saying that we didn't want to know, but I said I did.
You said you did, and she said, "Oh, you'd never guess what," because this is when we saw the scene with Rebecca Kerr and Bill Roach acting, and we're like, whoa, it's them. And she's like, oh yeah, you want to know something more? We're bringing back Martha. And like, whoa, that's amazing. This is nothing that anybody would have seen coming, which is why I'm just that little bit disappointed that they publicised it.
When did they publicise it?
It was about a month ago. They said, Stephanie Beacham's back. That's why we did the cabin extra then. And I'm like, oh, that would have been a great surprise. Just imagine how great that would have been. But on the other hand, it's Stephanie Beacham. You can't hide that. And I don't know. And also, I imagine she would want you to be singing it from the rooftops that she's doing it. And also,
this is not a good week to debut a new character that's supposed to be a secret special surprise, because it's already been uploaded on Monday. Yeah. Everyone who wants to know has seen it. Do you not say anything? This is the dilemma. Do you keep it a secret on Twitter and not say anything, trying to save people from spoilers? Yeah. Is it a spoiler if it's been, it's a whole new way of annoying people.
I remember when last year when the episodes were put on the ITV Hub, and on the whole, from the the areas of social media that I frequented, people were generally quite good about not putting spoilers on there. I did see the odd spoiler last night about this week's Coronation Street after we watched it, so it didn't particularly bother me. But yeah, this is the sort of thing that if any soap is going to debut their episodes online, then any unannounced major shocks like this could have been are gonna find their way out, aren't they? So that's another reason why I don't want them to stay with this particular format of debuting the episodes online. But anyway, that's by the by. I completely understand why they did show her, but that would have been brilliant if they hadn't. And also, we can also tell you that the final person who was at the TV Choice Awards the other week was Stephanie Beacham, wasn't it? We were when we did the fashion segment of the podcast, and you talked about what the other lovely Corrie stars and starlets were wearing. We couldn't mention the amazing red dress, was it? I think that Stephanie Beacham was wearing there. So anyway,
I just say, I love Stephanie Beacham. I love Martha. I also love Claudia. Right, but what I really want now, because you can't ever satisfy me, every time you give me something I want something else. What I want more than anything, before Ken sadly leaves the show eventually, is a face-off between Martha, Claudia
and Elaine Perkins,
played by Joanna Lumley. Can you imagine the beauty and elegance and grace encapsulated in one scene with those three legends of British television confronting each other?
That it feels like it's
and
just
Ken
got to
there,
happen.
And then like Tracy going, Dad, how did you pull all these birds? And then Ken going, I happen to think I'm quite a great guy, actually.
Yeah, it's so funny. He...
Imagine how jealous Brian would be.
Yeah, you'd want the tips.
He'd be like, how'd you pull all these titles?
He did say that he was quite jealous of Ken's back catalogue, I think was the phrasing that he used this week.
He doesn't know the half of it.
He really doesn't know. I mean, if he thinks that these three women or whatever are the only ones of Ken's, the only notches on Ken's bedpost, he's sadly mistaken. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact that they've got Wendy Crozier and now Martha in the show at the same time, there has got to be some kind of showdown between them.
Of course.
Claudia was in earlier this year, so is it possible? Could we get a scene with Rula Lanska in there as well? And Elaine Perkins, Joanna Lumley would be the cherry on the top.
Joanna Lumley came and did she did the 60. Did she do something?
She did something.
She went into the road.
Oh no, she did the 60 for 60, didn't she?
Yeah, which we also did.
Yeah.
So just remember everybody.
Us and Lummers.
So yeah, we're in the same league actually. And then just to top it all off, they all have a cat fight, and then in comes Patrick Stewart, who's also Corrie alumni, to put the fire out. Because he was a fireman. He was a fireman, and he'll come in with his hose and just hose them all down because they're all getting a bit too hot under the collar for our Ken Barlow.
There's no particular reason why. I mean, there probably is a very good reason, but I can't think of it off the top of my head why they would bring back Stephanie Beacham's character rather than Joanna Lumley's character, other than the fact that it is in more recent Coronation Street memory. I don't know. Is Joanna Lumley more expensive than Stephanie Beacham?
I think she might be.
Yeah, I guess so.
Joanna Lumley will only do something if in return she gets to do a documentary about cats.
I would love it. Just while we still can, it's brilliant.
I mean, honestly, she's only 76. That's not really old for Coronation Street actors.
Bill Roach has just turned 90. She could definitely do it. And I mean, the other thing is, of course, to mention that the character of Martha, wasn't that originally going to be Elaine Perkins? Wasn't the idea brought in that they were going to bring back Joanna Lumley 13 years ago? For whatever reason, it didn't happen. So the character of Martha was created, so they're one and the same, aren't they?
Interesting fact about Joanna Lumley that I didn't know until I just looked on her Wikipedia page. She was AOL's voice for You've Got Mail.
Oh yeah, I knew that one.
I didn't know it.
I remember that, my first internet
I didn't have AOL.
Yeah. Anyway, this great stuff. Do you think then that how long do you foresee Stephanie Beacham staying? Because I don't think that's been publicised. It feels like, because she probably is a little on the costly side, she's not going to be here for very long. So I'm lapping up every second of her I can get. Do you reckon 2 weeks are we talking? A month of Martha back on the show? Is there going to be enough to get a decent story out of?
I'm just happy whatever they want to throw my way, really.
I'm assuming that Ken's head is going to be turned by her a little bit, because he just can't help himself, the randy old geezer, But hopefully it's just going to be a story that makes him appreciate how much he loves Wendy. Or maybe it is going to be the end of Wendy, because I only expected her to be back in the programme for a month or so. But, you know, here she is nearly 6 months later, still going strong. Maybe this is going to be, you know, he's going to go lusting after Martha. Wendy's going to be like, screw that for a game of soldiers. And Ken will be left on his own again, nursing his wounds. And the moral of the story is you'll never learn Ken Barlow. I don't know.
I love that. You know,
it's
there's
just
something
great that they can do it.
It's tragic, but also really satisfying to think that somebody can live as long as Ken has and just never learn a lesson.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of inspiring in a really tragic way. Like, yeah, I will never learn. I'm going to make the same mistakes over and over again, and you know what? I'm going to enjoy doing it.
When I was watching Martha come in that first scene, like, I was getting all tingly and excited about how amazing this is to see her back on screen again, and after we'd kept that secret for so long as well. But when she started doing those scenes with Mary, I was like, oh, I don't think I'm really enjoying this, because the Martha story before was very serious, wasn't it? And it was, you know, Ken who's
Ken
always
having
lived in
midlife
probably was
crisis.
midlife knowing him, wasn't it? Yeah, when he was however old it was, 80.
60.
But there wasn't particularly comedy to it, and straight away Martha was in there going, oh, do your deep breathing, Mary. And I was like, oh no, I don't like this at all.
I do.
And then there was the bit where Martha's at the bar with Ken, and she gets all affronted by the fact that he said that she was just good friends, and she kind of flounces off, and I was like, no, I don't want this. I want there to be some proper serious reminiscing scenes and everything. So there were bits of it on that Thursday episode that I wasn't super happy with, but then when we got it in the end, that scene in the booth in the bistro with those two just, you know, talking about life and reflecting on their many years on this planet, and what would I do differently if, that was just lovely, and remembering all the old times, the brilliant dialogue. I loved all of that. It was fab.
I liked the cheesy comedy though stuff, because there was a hilarious scene when they went into Roy's and Shona was behind the counter. And who was it that said, was it Ken? Have you met Martha? She once set Chichester on fire. And Shona's like, no way.
That was funny.
That was particularly funny because we know people that live in Chichester.
Yeah, but the comedy,
it's very posh.
The over comedy, the utter ham of Mary's and Brian's, to be honest, performance. I just couldn't be doing with it this week. And that, I was glad when Martha came in and Mary was pushed to the sidelines.
It's very difficult.
She was ridiculously overacting, and it's perfectly in character for Mary, because this is what Mary has become now. But I'd much rather they'd have played it that she was just a bad actress and she was like not emoting, and I get that that's not Mary, but I just can't watch Mary when she's like that.
I think that
Brian with his stupid ears.
Performing badly is the hardest thing for an actor to do, intentionally. But you know what I mean? There's been quite often in Coronation Street, right from the very beginning, there's been the characters are all going to put on a play, and they're all am-jam, and they've got to perform, and they've got to pretend, the actors have got to pretend that they can't act, and they always overdo it. There's very few of them that I've noted before when I think that somebody's done a really good job, but it's really difficult.
In my mind, they always underdo it, as in like they just show that they're bad actors, but Mary, Patty's performance was just so over the top, and I don't necessarily blame her. I'm sure that's what she was directed to do, but it's like, seriously, you would know that this was over the top. And when Ken and Brian were saying, oh, Nigel's going to drop Mary if we're not careful, if it was me, I'd be like, good, because she's bloody rubbish.
I think you might be blissfully ignorant of some of the depths of depravity that are on display in amateur dramatics.
But, you know, this play, it seems like the only actors in it are Ken, Brian and Mary. Brian's rubbish, Mary's rubbish.
I'd pay to see it.
This is going to be a comedy of errors. It's going to be a disaster on the stage. And I know it's supposed to be a comedy story, but because it's tied up with the love life of Ken and, you know, older romance and all that kind of stuff, so there is a serious edge to it. The hamminess of Mary and Brian, unfortunately, bring it down a little bit for me, in my opinion. But I still am generally enjoying where the story goes. They just need to rein it in a little bit.
And Steve's coming back,
Steve
talking
is
about
coming back
reining
next
it
week.
in. And,
Yeah, speaking of
hammy.
hamminess. Yeah, we got Tracy on the phone with him this week, didn't we? Saying, oh, you're coming
back on
back.
Tuesday.
Oh, you've hurt your foot,
But what does that
have you?
mean in the world of Weatherfield
Yeah,
and the
who
World
knows?
Cup?
At some point in the next week's podcast,
She's like,
we'll talk about Steve back on the
Steve,
cobbles.
you're going to be uploaded to ITVX on Monday morning at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, you better get on that plane. Anyway, look out for that, everybody. Steve is back. Anyway, next storyline, the Max Streamism storyline. I think we've spoken a long time about those other ones so far. I don't know how long these are going to take, but the Max storyline carried on the Wednesday episode, the first episode of the week, and we see Toya going to visit Leanne. Still can't believe all this about Spider. He's a massive racist all along, and she's never even knew him. She never realised this, and so they decide, let's just forget all about that and have a slap-up lunch to take our minds off things. Bistro, maybe?
I'm going to get to see them going and eating.
You don't? Well, that means they probably didn't go to the bistro then. Maybe
I want to see what they had.
Mystical restaurants.
If you ever go anywhere and you tell me, as your friend, I'm going out to so-and-so or whatever, I'm going to have a meal here or whatever, you need to send me a picture of what you ate. So if I was Leanne and Toya's friend, I'd be texting going, what did you guys have?
Leanne and Toya don't have any friends.
They don't. They've got each other and that's enough.
Yes. Griff and Spider are in the pub later, and they're kind of looking at this video edit thing that Max put online and going, oh, look how many views this has had. I don't think they use the term viral, because maybe they've realised that that's being maybe a tad overused on Coronation Street. But yeah, Max's video is getting all the hits. And Spider's like, oh, what's our next move going to be now then? He's kind of digging for information from Griff. He's still remaining fairly tight-lipped about what his devious plan is. He's like, yeah, all in good time. Then Toya and Leanne walk in. And Toya, good on her. She's like, I'm not going to turn around. I think, does Leanne maybe say, are you sure you want to stay?
Do you want to go somewhere else?
And she's like, no, I can walk into my local. I've got nothing to be ashamed of here. I'm not hiding from them.
She stands at the bar and glowers at him.
She does. And what did you want her to do?
No, I just thought it was funny. She's like, I'm not bothered. And she's like staring at him.
Leanne's like, I can't believe how you can look at yourself in a mirror. How do you sleep at night, Spider? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm just standing up for this country. And there's a few times this week where Spider kind of says some things that he knows this is the sort of thing that racists say. I don't actually believe it, but I've learnt this line, so I'm going to say it myself. And Griff says, there's a hard rain coming, and my advice to you is to make sure you're standing under the right umbrella. And he's just absolutely vile and foul, says the same kind of stuff as he has been the last few weeks. And this is when Jenny says, right lads, enough is enough. Don't know why I've even let you in here in the first place anyway, but you're barred. Get out of my pub.
Get out of my pub.
And I was thinking before this happened, why are they allowed in here? Because they had that argument with Alia a week ago, didn't they? Where they were clearly racist. Then after that, Griff does his speech in the community centre about the crayfish, and there's like, why is Jenny letting him in this pub? So better late than never, but maybe you shouldn't have let him in the first place, Jenny. That's all I'm saying. Thursday's episode, Maria finally goes to Max and says, you know what? I think you should take that video down. It makes it look like everybody agreed with Griff at the meeting. He's a vile racist. And Max says, well, you know what? I do agree with him. He's not racist. He's just speaking the truth and telling it like it is, and we need to be careful about these people. And he also says to her, like, yeah, you can keep your nose out of my business and jog on. Which I loved, Max telling Maria to jog on. Griff reads all about, they're back at the flat later, and he reads something online about her wanting to turn the community centre into this refugee hub or whatever it's supposed to be. And all this fellow racists are there and kind of mumbling their discontent about the idea. And this is again when Spider's like, yeah, I can't believe the community centre is supposed to be for our community and they are being used for this. Is this the sort of thing that I'm supposed to say, Griff? Yeah, down with black people. And Griff says, you know what, Spider, you speak a lot of sense. You can help me stop it.
Let me have your chips.
Oh yeah, he does have his chips later on in the episode, doesn't he? Maria and Gary are talking over this idea about the community centre over lunch in the bistro, and he says, you need to go over to that centre and see what you reckon you could do with the place. So they do, and nothing really happens there, and it kind of segues into another play scene, doesn't it? But Maria's scoped out the joint later. Later still, they find Max and Spider handing out flyers outside of the... was it Max and Spider? No, it was Griff and Spider, wasn't it, I think? Handing out flyers outside the community centre saying that Maria wants to close it. And Maria's like, no, what are you talking about? They're that kind of saying, this is supposed to be for our community, and now you're shutting down those services to serve... these outsider communities. And Maria's like, no, I don't want to cut anything to the local community. What I'm offering here is extra. She kind of gets a bit in a bonnet and storms off at being once again accused of not caring about the locals. And then they see Max, and he's kind of scurrying down Victoria Street, kind of trying to keep his head down. But they go over to him, and he's like, I'm just trying to, I'm trying to get my head down at the moment. David's really riding me, and I need to keep him sweet. And Griff says, oh, really? Well, I thought that I had some kind of bright, talented guy in there that I just enlisted here. So, or whatever. Probably didn't use the word enlisted because that sounds a little bit what it actually is. And I thought you had a mind of your own, Max, in your head. Was I wrong? And Max is like, oh, yeah, no, actually, you're right. So back at home, Griff and Spider have a reflect back on the day and how it all went. And Griff said, right, we need Max. He makes these awesome videos that literally nobody in Weatherfield could do. I reckon that he needs a new family because, David and Shona, they're not good for him. I reckon he needs to be a member of our family. And Spider's like, yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Let's do that. But it's the end of the episode now, so maybe we'll leave it until next week. So, what are their plans for Max then? Is it literally they're going to try and what's the phrase? To
indoctrinate him.
Yeah, they're indoctrinating him and making him reject his family. It's quite like what Jeff did to Yasmin, isn't it? When he was turning her against the support that Alia and that was so,
alienating him.
Yeah, so it feels like that's the natural place for this story to go. And I know some people are still saying this is going far too fast, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but maybe in the next bout of this storyline, because that was the Thursday episode. They weren't in the Sunday episode at all, so maybe the story's having a little break for a bit. They're going to get Max to move out of David's house and join them, and David's probably going to be fairly powerless to stop him.
I'm really interested where Toya fits in with this, and is she still going to be on the periphery of this storyline, or what? Is she going to uncover something about Spider that makes her realise what his predicament is, or? It's I just find it I find that quite interesting because I'm very interested in Toya as a character, and I don't want to see her get sidelined.
No, it was nice to see on Monday's episode they still featured her with her saying, "Well, I'm over him. I can't believe." Yeah, but that almost to me felt like it was a way of saying we're parking Toya until the revelation comes that Spider is an undercover police officer. And that, to be honest, now could be a very long time away. They don't seem to be in any rush to uncover that particular secret.
In a way, it's kind of good for the future relationship between Spider and Toya that they broke up now, because that means that there's less opportunity for Spider to have to lie to her about what he's getting up to. And she might be able to forgive him when more time has passed.
She doesn't like liars, though, does she, Toya?
Not.
I mean, Imran was had a penchant for porkies. So if she finds out,
into a wall.
Yeah, watch out, Spider. Yeah, I think that they will get back together again. I really hope so, and I think so. But she's not going to forgive him easily.
Canonically, now a murderer on Coronation Street.
Yeah,
I think she is, isn't she?
What was it? No, because she was tried for murder, wasn't she? But actually,
she wasn't found guilty. But I don't think that means that
she wasn't found guilty because the trial was saying that it was premeditated, and she's like, no, I didn't mean to do it. I just decided to do it off the cuff. And they're like, that's all right then.
That's how
we'll let you go.
That's how I order things off the internet.
So yeah,
it's never premeditated.
Don't get me started, but yeah, everybody kind of accepts that Toya...
What, on me?
What?
On get you started on what?
No, on Toya and the whole ridiculous notion that everybody does kind of accept that she did kill Imran on purpose in the moment because she just kind of lost
It's one of those heat of the moment things.
It's like saying, if a teacher smacks a child, like when Ken punched Aidan Critchley back in the day. Oh, I didn't plan it. I wasn't sort of sitting. That's part of my lesson plan.
Yeah.
10 minutes, give you a little introduction, then I'm going to do this, then after that I'm going to punch him in. He wasn't any of that. Aidan just wound him up. And Ken lost his job for it. Toya's just been like, pat on the back, off you go.
I think Toya should drive Griff into a wall.
I am very, very unhappy with what they're doing with that. I don't want to talk
Well,
about it.
okay, alright, I won't bring
sad.
up any sad memories for you.
But no, this story is fine. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of movement to it this week, was it?
It's uncomfortable to watch. I mean, I have to say I've seen quite a lot of comments online about how I feel like I'm a bad person because a lot of people are like, I can't watch it, it's too bad.
Well, I'm seeing lots of people saying that, but I'm also seeing lots of people saying this is ridiculous, it's not realistic at all. So I think there's a bit of a balance. But yeah, so
I think they're doing a good job.
I think they're doing a good job as well. There's very little that I'm going to watch and feel mega uncomfortable watching because I'm not that sort of person. I'm a bit of a hope stape when it comes to all that kind of thing.
Psychopaths, we're both psychopaths.
As we've said in previous podcasts, this is my favourite story for a while.
Well, sometimes something catches you, doesn't it? And it really gets you. I guess, again, I just feel very lucky that this isn't something that hits home to me in any way. Yeah. I don't hang around with racists, and I've not been victim of any racism. So
no.
This is why it's an important storyline for Coronation Street to make people aware who think that there's nothing like this that goes on. That actually it does. And
sometimes bands play music with sinister lyrics.
Sinister.
Right under our noses.
Can't believe it.
Yeah. I hope that even if this story is being parked for a little bit, I hope we get to see a bit of it before Christmas.
I love a bit of Christmas racism.
Don't leave it too long.
You could isolate so many clips from this podcast and ruin us forever, couldn't you?
Don't do it. Anyways, but speaking of stories that never seem to stop, and you can't have much of a break before, and there she is, she's back on again. Summer, Gemma, I'm afraid to say.
Summer.
Over to you. Let's have summer.
It occurred to me the other day that it takes 10,000 hours to perfect a skill. So if you want to learn how to play the piano or something, or be good at karate, you need to put in 10,000 hours and then you've mastered it.
Have we mastered podcasting yet? Have we got 10,000 hours worth under our belts?
I think Summer's mastered the art of being an insufferable, boring pain in the arse because she's been doing it for longer than 10,000 hours. What do you think?
How long is 10,000 hours in years?
That's a really good question. Maybe you could work it out.
Yeah, okay. 10,000 hours.
So on Thursday, Summer's a bit jealous because Amy's doing her university work, isn't she? And I've forgotten what it is that she's learning.
Who is Amy?
Yeah, but
business, is she?
Business. Summer's jealous because she wishes she could be a SWAT again. Because I think a lot of her self-esteem came from being clever, and now she hasn't got that to fall back
she
on.
hasn't, and you can see how she's acting in the factory. Like we said, she's calling Carla Miss and everything. She doesn't know anything outside of education.
She hasn't got any idea what to do at her job, really. She feels a bit sick again because don't forget, she's pregnant. Summer turns up to work a bit late and Jacob's held the fort, but Carla discovers that he's been covering for her because she was late and tells them both off and gives them a warning.
10,000 hours is 1.142 years.
So she's
easily managed.
She's like a grandmaster.
Yeah.
So Carla's come down a bit later and she unwarns them, just like she unsuspended Beth. And Jacob tells Summer she's got to take it easy. And also Summer won't tell Carla that she's pregnant for some reason.
Well, she doesn't want any more people to know than is strictly necessary, does she? Because she doesn't want to have this baby selling
scam.
Summer
comes back from work later. She's knackered. She's got stuff to do from the factory. Don't know why she's bringing work home with her.
Carla's given her homework.
How much do you think she's on? She can't be on more than minimum wage. Why would you take work home with you for that? It's not like she wants to make a career out of being an admin in the knicker factory.
I don't know.
Calm down, Summer. Jacob offers to do it for her, and then somebody else makes her some beans on toast or something, and she kind of sits kind of contentedly as they
Sam had a nice plate of cold
scurry
beans
around.
on toast this week,
Oh, it was
didn't
so
he?
funny. There was a bit where Sam was sitting in front of his beans, and then Nick comes in and says, "Are you ready to go?" It's like, Nick, you're awful. You're the worst parent ever. He hasn't even started eating his lunch. What do you mean, are you ready to go?
It did look very much like they just emptied a tin of beans straight onto some toast, didn't they?
Yeah, you know how much a can of beans cost these days? I bought a can of beans the other day, £1.85.
Wow, what a waste.
With the ones with nice sausages in them. I love those. On Sunday, Eric's getting out of rehab. That is Aaron's dad, who they raised the 10 grand for so that he could go to overcome his alcoholism, and it's a one and done apparently. I'll believe that when I see it. Summer seems a bit more interested in worrying about work than she does about Eric. Then Sarah's this weird thread in this episode where Summer and Adam see that
The local butcher has sent out his Christmas cards early.
yeah, and so they both get inspired and they want to start sending out cards. And there's a bit where Adam says to Sarah, "Yeah, I need to get mine out, of course, without Imran's signature on it." And I'm thinking, well, yes, because he's dead.
I know.
Why would you send out cards with a dead man's signature on it?
And how would you get it unless you've got an e-signature for him?
Weird. Anyway, so Sarah says, "Oh, we should send out our Christmas cards." Is this a dig at us? Because we send our Christmas cards out today.
We do. We sent out our Christmas cards to Coronation Street today.
Well, at least one person should already have theirs in their pigeonhole.
Yes, we sent one out last week and we sent the bulk this week. So if you're in Coronation Street,
look forward to
to
that.
And if we haven't sent you one, sorry, we couldn't send one to all of you.
Well, if you want one, ask us for one. We'll send you anyone.
Come on the
Christmas
podcast
card.
for an interview.
Yeah, it's only for VIPs who've been on the show. So Sarah's like, "Oh, Summer can do that," and Carla says, "No, you do it yourself." What's that about?
I don't know.
Eric comes to the flat and he has to do this thing that I guess is part of his recovery, where he tells them he's an alcoholic, and Summer says, "Well done," which I just thought was very awkward because I don't remember if she's ever met him before.
Yes, she has.
Okay, but he says, "All right, if I can get through Christmas, I can get through anything," which I think also this guy's being set up to fail so badly here.
Why?
Well, first of all, they're acting like you can go through rehab once and it's definitely going to cure you, which is too much pressure. Number two, he's going to find out at some point what Summer and Aaron have done, and it's going to shock him. Number three, Eric and Summer and Aaron's plan later is to escape and leave everyone behind and hide, which obviously I haven't got to yet, but that would screw with Eric. And then finally, he's come into his period of trying to stay sober right at the beginning of Christmas, which is the worst, booziest.
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
All
wasn't
day long on every channel are just endless adverts of people pouring Baileys into glasses full of ice, or drinking wine around a Christmas table, or setting Christmas puddings on fire with lashings of brandy. I don't know how anybody could cope. I just wouldn't be able. I wouldn't be able to stop drinking over Christmas, so how could an alcoholic?
Oh, you need to have a word to Peter. He'd be able to help him out.
Peter's like, "Do you know what I like to do? Drink a glass of orange juice with a bit of rum in it."
Yeah, has Eric heard about orange juice?
Maybe
Going to change his life. It'll be a
that's all
revelation.
he needs. I tell you what, the orange juice at the Rovers' return is just the best. So Summer's impressed.
No, it's not Summer, is it? Sarah.
So Michael, as we know, is an entrepreneur, and he makes a reference to the fact that he got in trouble about some kind of copyright with his t-shirts at one point. So he's now relaunching his business to include matching loungewear for adults and children, which is of course an amazing concept that nobody's ever thought of. And Sarah sees this and she's very impressed by his sketches. So
well, I guess this is why we had that scene earlier of Carla saying, "No, Sarah Louise, Summer won't do the Christmas cards, you're going to do it." So it's because Sarah's feeling a bit underappreciated and a bit of a dog
feeling
spotty.
like, she's being treated like an idiot,
Yeah.
which is quite a coincidence
Rather than a
considering
partner.
that she is one. So later on, the Aaron,
Sorry, these notes don't make any sense either, do
Aaron, Summer and Eric are talking.
they? About the babe.
And
No, about the
did
money.
they talk about the abortion? But they're talking
don't
about
know.
the money. Where he's like, "Where did the money come from?" And they tell him that Billy gave it to them.
Oh yeah, the money for the
because
rehab.
they thought they told him that they were going to pay for a car, and then Eric's like, "Well, what are you going to do about buying a car?" And Summer and Aaron are like,
They've really not thought this
They're
through.
so stupid. They're so dumb.
Yeah.
Why didn't she just say my dad left it to me and leave it at that?
At least they're young and they've got a reason, not like Leanne with
That's
her
true.
many years of business experience blundering into the deal that she got landed with this week.
This is another one of Coronation Street's filtered night shoots, which is actually shot during the middle of the day.
That was... I hate it.
Michael
Just because
really didn't like
really
this.
winds me up whenever they put a dark filter over something that's filmed in the middle of the night. It worked all right in that scene earlier this year with Gary in the woods, didn't it? When it was supposed to be pitch black. That was fairly effective. But when they want to show kind of dusky times on Coronation Street, they just stick a filter over it.
It's like, the moon is blinding today. So,
anyway, sorry.
Sarah's decided she wants to go into business with Michael on the down low, not tell anybody at the factory, and they can make a fortune together. Back at the factory, someone's worrying, Kel Surprise, about the lie that they told Eric, and then she explains this to Jacob, and Jacob's like, what are you... If I was Jacob, I'd just slap her. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'll solve your problems right now. I'll just give you a big old slap and then bring you to your senses. Because she hasn't told anybody, and she hasn't even told Billy. And he says, everyone's going to realise you can't put this off.
She keeps thinking and realising this, doesn't she?
Can
but
I
then
just
not
say
going
one
any
thing,
further
though?
with her thoughts.
I do sympathise a little bit with Summer here, and I think that it's very easy to sort of judge her from my position of being a woman who, like, if I got pregnant, it would be fine. But I do remember being a young girl, and worrying about that kind of thing, and thinking about how would I hide it? How would I, telling everybody that you're pregnant is a big thing if you're as young as she is. And it was hard enough to go through the whole thing about wanting to have a termination. And the idea that you can just... I think a lot of people forget that a lot of our problems we do just put off and not tell anybody about them. But pregnancy is one of those things that you just can't really do. But the mental issue about trying to hide your problem isn't affected by the fact that you're pregnant. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you still have that same urge to just leave it and not think about it and try to hide it from even yourself. And unfortunately, it doesn't work when you're pregnant, but that doesn't stop people from doing it, is what I'm trying to get at.
The thing is, she's got the added complication of she doesn't want people to know she's pregnant because she's planning to sell the baby.
I know.
Which hopefully most of us don't need to have if we're worried about that kind of thing.
I know. I just feel bad. I think that there are probably a lot of women who might be able to sympathise with this really incredibly self-harming concept of trying to pretend that you're not actually pregnant when you really are, and thinking that you can, like, it's magical thinking, isn't it? And everyone indulges in a little bit of that every now and then. That's why we play the lottery. So she's like, maybe there's a chance that I could be one of those women on I didn't know I was pregnant and just give birth in a toilet and nobody knows that I'm pregnant. Maybe I'll be one of these women where the baby grows into my torso and I just look very slim the whole time. So he says, you need to tell Billy. So she goes home and tells Aaron, I've got an idea. We're not going to tell Billy. We're going to move.
Good plan, Summer. That is the best plan that I've heard you say. Yes.
Aaron says, well, this is dumb. We just moved in here. This is ridiculous. Why can't we just tell everybody? Why can't we tell the truth? And then Summer brings up the point that if they tell everybody about the baby, Esther and Mike will get in trouble. And then they'll have to pay them back the £10,000. So it is a logical dilemma that she's in here.
Yeah, it is.
It's not one of these made-up ones where it's just like, can you just stop being an idiot and you could literally solve all your problems instantly if you just stop being...
They have got themselves into a bit of a
pickle.
pickle.
It's not like Sean being homeless where he just needed to wave a magic wand and he'd be fine again. At least this actually makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So and then we also get the scene where Sarah and Michael are showing Adam the designs for the loungewear and he's impressed, and then Sarah reminds Michael not to tell Carla, which will obviously go very well.
Can't wait to see what's happening there. I mean, I like Michael Bailey. I quite like Sarah if they give her the right things to do. This story where somebody sets up a side business feels like it's been done numerous times before. It feels like it's been put in there to give Michael something to do rather than to make an exciting story. But maybe I'm wrong.
If they really want to jazz up their loungewear, they need to ask Alia if they can borrow her special embroidery machine that she bribed her granddad for.
Get Nina involved as well. She's an awesome designer. Yeah, she did. She bribed Sharif, didn't she?
Yeah.
Because she knew about his affair.
And it was very, very important and completely
revolutionised Underworld.
And then it never got mentioned again, and we don't even know where the machine is now.
Right,
maybe
finally.
It fell on Rana's head.
Finally, we've got the Eliza Do Lots story, which is just Wednesday's episode, and Stu's still fretting. It was very much the same as last week, wasn't it? Him being all the 6s and 7s about, how do I look after Eliza? How do I make sure she's having a perfect life here? How do I be a great granddad? I've never done anything like this before. And Yasmin's like, chill, Stu, it's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. Alia goes off for the first day at her new job, which we don't get to see any of, and Stu's a little bit miffed because before Alia leaves, Eliza comes down and says, can Alia take me to school? So Stu's feeling kind of like second fiddle here. And Yasmin's like, don't worry, she's just a cool older sister. That's what I think when I think about Alia.
Alia is coming into her own with showing off to Eliza about like lounging in her beautiful satin white shirt on Sunday's episode. Was it Wednesday?
Wednesday's episode. So Stu goes and takes Eliza to school, comes back, seemed to go well the school run, but Stu's like, I think I jabbered on too much. What's she gonna think about me? And then he's like, anyway, I've got to make a nice casserole for tea now. I need to show her that her days of being let down are well and truly in the past. Time for tea later, and after all the effort that Stu went to, sad times, Eliza doesn't really want to eat too much because she's got gymnastics club later, and Stu's like, I didn't have any idea about this. And, I know he's trying to bend over backwards for Eliza here, but there's got to be a bit of give and take, and really, Eliza or somebody should have told Stu about her clubs that she's in.
That's what I was thinking, like, she was a kid and she doesn't get that she needs to tell him everything. But how did this... If I was Stu, I'd be like...
She seemed bright enough. I think she should have really mentioned it.
I know, but kids are not...
Yeah.
If I was Stu, I'd be like, no, you don't have gymnastics class because this is a big week.
I don't.
I'd be like, I'm not taking you to gymnastics now because I'm tired and I've taken my bra off.
And it's at school as well. Oh, it's nearby schools. We have to do the run all again. She goes to this Catholic school.
As well on the bus.
Yeah.
He hasn't got a car, so he's got to take her on the bus everywhere.
Yeah, so he comes back later. This episode is just Stu going out and then coming back again and going, oh, right, that.
Yeah, this is the old... We don't want a child storyline
for Eliza
on Coronation Street because most of it is who's going to babysit the kid, and I've got to take the kid to insert class here. I've got to take the kid to school. I've got to pick the kid up from school. I know it's real life and it's hard and tedious, but it's also hard and tedious to bloody watch it.
Basically, Yasmin's just saying that maybe we need to enroll her into Weatherfield High School here, and Stu's like, no, I don't want to ruin her routine. She goes to this Catholic school. I fear for her immortal soul and everything.
Yeah.
So
how will she get to heaven?
I hear that they have children going around with hammers at Weatherfield High.
I wouldn't send her
they
there.
Probably don't do that at St Monica's or whatever it is that she's going to. So
no, the other point is that Stu, after having taken Eliza to gymnastics, has now got this list of all the things that she has to do.
That's why she's Eliza Do Lots.
All the clubs. So he's put a little thing up on the wall like, this is all the stuff I've got to do all week. And then this is when Yasmin says, this is a bit too much to take on. Yeah. Why don't you send her to Weatherfield High so that you don't have to at least do the school run and you can concentrate on everything else? And he's like, no. And I kind of see his point where she's had so much upheaval that it would be unfair for her to take her out of her school and away from all her friends, because I think I'd be devastated if I was a girl. And
if she's really enjoying it there as well. And everything.
But at the same time, looking at that list of stuff, and I'm like, yes, I'm 40. Stu, I don't know, is he 60 or something? That made me tired. I don't know if I was 60, what I'd feel like, and I had to do it on the bloody bus.
Yeah. Get Alia to do it, and also Dan.
It's too tiring. I can't be bothered. I can't even imagine it. How do children have so much energy?
They summon it from somewhere. It's all that lazing about they do at school, and they should be working.
I think that we should harness this power to solve the energy crisis.
And with that, we have reached the end of this week's Street Talk. Gemma, what score are we giving Coronation Street this week, and who was our character of the week?
But for me, the only character that I could give this to this week is Debbie, because I thought she was so such a spitfire. I think she's great. She's hilarious. She causes so many issues. I like a good old fashioned Corrie antagonist. Coronation Street's been a bit reluctant to have one of those for a while, and I want to know what she's going to do next. I hope this is not sort of a phase out of Debbie. I can't believe it will be, because I think
barely
she's
there
popular.
as it is.
But,
she is. I think she is.
And I also want to give this week's episodes four pairs of ridiculous ears, so we all get some and some left over.
I'm going to give it to Sam this week, just because I was so impressed with those prison scenes, and it could have been a bit cringy, but it wasn't. And the way that he kept on pushing, he knew exactly the right things to say. And he was, making all his notes and everything. I enjoyed everything Sam did this week, so he was a very easy character of the week for me. Score wise, I'm gonna give it 3.5. I think it's similar to last week. There were downsides of it, like I wasn't too fussed about the stew stuff, obviously the summer stuff, but then that wasn't too much to the week. I loved the Martha side of the story, but Mary and Brian's overacting just drive me insane. And the Hope stuff was fine. It just wasn't like as epically exciting enough. We didn't see the hammer attack in action, and maybe a bit of hammer carnage would have raised it up to a 4. I don't know, but 3.5 is still good. I'm feeling positive about Corrie at the moment. 3.5 will keep me satisfied.